Good morning, everyone. Am I audible? Okay. Thank you. Please switch on the webcams. All of you, please switch on the webcams. Yes, welcome to the analysis of the Union Budget 23-24. By now, you must have already gone through certain bits and pieces of the Union Budget, which the Finance Minister had announced on 1st of February 2023. But we know for sure that just having a knowledge in bits and pieces about the Union Budget is not going to be sufficient as far as your prelims and mains examination is concerned. What we need for both prelims and mains is a detailed analysis of the Union Budget. And that is what we are going to do as far as this particular session is concerned. So before I start with the analysis of this year's budget, let me first tell you as to what would be my approach to this year's budget, how we would be approaching this year's budget. Let's understand the approach first, okay? So here, first and foremost, we will understand the importance of budget, both from the perspective of prelims as well as a mains examination. So here we'll understand as to in what way questions were asked in previous year prelims as well as mains from the previous year budget. Based upon the analysis of the nature of questions asked in previous year prelims and mains, you'll get a fair amount of idea as to what kind of questions you can expect in the upcoming prelims and the mains examination. So we'll understand the overall importance of budget from the perspective of prelims and mains. Then we will understand the background to the budget. When I say background to the budget means here, we are going to understand as to what are the current challenges which the Indian economy is facing presently, what are the opportunities before the Indian economy, and how the finance minister has sought to address these challenges and capitalize on the opportunities that we are going to face. So understanding the background to the budget will give you a continuity in terms of understanding the various components. So second part is a background to the budget. And nextly, we'll understand as to what are the priorities of the Union Budget 23-24. See, last year's Union Budget, it laid on a blueprint for Amrit Kaal. As you know, India is moving from India at 75 to India at 100. So next 25 years, we will be celebrating the 100 years of India's independence. So last year budget laid on a blueprint for Amrit Kaal. And you must be knowing that as part of the blueprint, the government last year has sought to increase its overall investment in creation of capital assets, such as roads, railways, ports, airports, and so on. Because it is believed that as we spend more on creation of infrastructure, automatically it will crowd in the private investment. It will increase the consumption expenditure. It will increase the job creation. And in a nutshell, we will be able to increase the GDP growth rate. So last year budget laid on a blueprint, a kind of foundation for the Indian economy. So once we have laid on the foundation, the next logical step would be to build pillars on this particular foundation, right? So this year's budget is going to lay down the pillars on the last year's budget foundation. So to a large extent, this year's budget is a continuation of last year's budget. For example, this year's budget has focused upon a concept. For example, this year's budget has focused upon a concept or a framework called as Saptarishi model. As part of this Saptarishi model, here government has set 7 different priorities as far as the government budgeting is concerned. So we are going to understand as to what are these priority areas for the government and how the government is going to give a flip to the Indian economy. So here, let's discuss the approach. See, we all know that when the government presents the budget is presented from the perspective of Indian economy, right? So what I will be doing in this particular budget session is I will be converting the entire budget document of the government into your UPSC centric knowledge. When I say UPSC centric knowledge means I'm not going to discuss the budget in the same line as the way the finance minister has presented the budget. What I'm going to do is what all initiatives the finance minister has announced in this year's budget, all such initiatives, I'm going to club it under your different themes of the syllabus. Just try to recall your important themes under the syllabus. These important themes include agriculture, banking and finance, inclusive growth, infrastructure, social sector, right? So here, each of the budget announcements I'm going to club under different themes. So we will be carrying out a theme-wise discussion of the union budget. Now, for example, let's say I take up the theme of banking and finance. In the theme of banking and finance, there is one major initiative which the government has launched. This initiative is with respect to setting up of the National Financial Information Registry. Now, just having an information that we have set up a National Financial Information Registry is not going to be sufficient, right? Because UPSC will dig deeper into these aspects and ask you a question. So what I'm going to do is, which each of the initiatives which the finance minister has announced, I will be carrying out a 360-degree analysis of these initiatives announced in this year budget. For example, with respect to National Financial Information Registry, I'm going to discuss as to why do we even need such a registry? What is the present problem in the Indian economy? And how setting up of this registry will help the Indian economy? So that in UPSC mains examination, if you get a question related to the National Financial Information Registry, you should be able to answer such a question. Just give me 1 second. Oh, Yeah, sorry for the inconvenience. Hope I'm audible. Okay, fine. So I was discussing as to how I would be approaching the budget. So like I said, all the important budget announcements, I will be clubbing up under separate themes of your syllabus. I will be discussing the budget in a theme wise. Let's say I discuss a particular topic from the budget by adopting a 360-degree approach. Immediately, once I'm done with the discussion of a particular topic, I will take up prelims based questions for practice and also main space question for practice. So I will ask you the answers for the prelims based question for the practice, so that you are also able to answer questions from the budget. Apart from that, I will also discuss as to if at all a question is asked in UPSC mains examination from a budget announcement, how should you structure the answer to such a question? How should you write an answer in terms of introduction, body, and conclusion? And how can you enrich your answers? So all of these things we are going to discuss. Okay. So like I said, this session is not just about the budget session. It's more about how do you approach your UPSC syllabus from the perspective of the budget. This is what we are going to do, right? So let's start here with what's the importance of budget for the UPSC examination. First, so when you look at Indian economy, we know that Indian economy is a very dynamic subject. Since it is a very dynamic subject, we should always link the current developments to the static part and the static part to the current developments. By having that kind of cross linkages, your ability to grasp various concepts in Indian economy will drastically improve. And when you look at the budget, right, budget is considered to be one of the best link between your current developments and the static part of your syllabus. So you can link both these two things. For example, you can see here that you must have studied in the static part of syllabus the components of revenue account, the components of capital account, deficits in India, the public debt, and so on. So this is the static part. Now, when you go to the budget, you'll be able to link the static part to the current developments. Now, for example, you can just have a question. Look at the question asked in Prelims 2021. The question is, which among the following steps is most likely to be taken at the time of an economic recession? Why do you think this question was asked in Prelims 2021? You know what is happening with the Indian economy in 2021, right? So in the 2021, Indian economy was facing recession. So in order to come out of the recession, what did the government do? The government increased the capital expenditure, particularly in creation of new assets, new infrastructure, right? So this was in news that particular year. But if you look at the question, the nature of question, was it a current affairs question or was it a static question? It's a static question, but linked to what? Linked to the current developments. So what I'm trying to say is, when you go to the budget, your ability to link current developments to the static part will improve, and automatically you'll be able to get the right answer to the questions. So what do you think is the answer to this particular question asked in Prelims 2021? Good. Answer happens to be B. That is increase in expenditure on public projects, right? Partha, you can lower your hand. I'll come back to your doubt later. Hope it's okay. Coming to the next part, in what way the budget is important? In the UPSC, we can get direct questions from budget. For example, in UPSC mains or prelims, we could get direct questions related to important schemes, important initiatives of the budget, or you could get questions related to important trends with respect to fiscal deficit, primary deficit, and so on. For example, you can see this particular question asked in Prelims 2022. This question is with reference to Indian economy, consider the following statements. A share of household financial savings goes towards the government borrowings. Dated securities issued at market rated rates in auctions form a large component of internal debt. Now, if you have gone through my last year's budget, you would easily know the right answer. In the last year's budget, I had clearly discussed this particular aspect. So what's the answer to this particular question? Good Abhilash, good Gayatri. The right answer to this particular question is both 1 and 2. Some of you are asking, repeatedly asking me to share the screen. There's some problem with respect to sharing of screen. If I share the screen, I'll not be able to see all the guys, and I want to see all your faces. That's the reason I'm not sharing the screen. Hope it's okay with all of you. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, then in UPSC mains, you can see there are two questions which are asked. Mains 2017, there was a direct question with respect to the theme of the Union Budget 2017-18, which is with respect to transform, energize, and clean India. Apart from that, in mains 2018, a direct question related to the important changes which the finance minister had introduced with respect to the long-term capital gains tax and dividend distribution tax. Direct question from the budget. Third, when you go to the budget as well as economic survey, you'll come across a lot of value addition points. Using this value addition points, you can enrich your answer in the UPSC mains examination. For example, by going to the budget as well as economic survey, you'll come across important facts, important figures. You'll come across the recommendations of important committees, which if you use in the UPSC mains examination, obviously you'll have that kind of edge over your competitors. Apart from that, in interview, if you get any questions related to Indian economy, you can always answer such questions by taking reference from the budget as well as economic survey. Let's take an example, look at the example as far as the third part is concerned. Please have a look at the question asked in mains 2022. The question is inclusive growth possible under the market economy? State the significance of financial inclusion in achieving economic growth in India. Look at the first part of the question. It says, can the government promote inclusive growth under market economy? Now we know what is market economy. Market economy is when economy has tilted more towards the private sector. So here, while writing answer, you have to write points in favor as well as against. Now, if you have gone through last year's budget as well as economic survey, you could have written a very good answer to this particular mains question. Now, for example, you could have taken help of the budget and said that in spite of the Indian economic tilt towards the private sector, government has been able to promote inclusive growth through various policies, through various schemes, through various initiatives for which you could have taken help of the last year's budget. So last year's budget, what did it do? The government took a lead in priming the Indian economy, in putting more amount of money into the Indian economy. By doing so, the government was able to promote growth and development, right? So that is how the budget becomes quite important as far as your prelims as well as mains examination is concerned. So here, when I say the budget, from the budget, you could get direct questions. Second, by going to the budget, you could link the current developments to the static part. And third, by going to the budget, you'll get a lot of further points which you can use to enrich your answers. So that is why the budget is quite important. Clear with this? So let's start now with respect to background to the budget. Let's understand the background to the budget. See, whatever I'm explaining, everything is there in the PPT. As you can see, it's there at the background, right? So what I would suggest is, instead of focusing on the PPT, just focus on the explanation part, because later everything is there in the form of handwritten notes. So let us understand the background to the budget. So here we are going to discuss as to what challenges the Indian economy was facing when the finance minister sat down to formulate the budget and how she has sought to address these challenges. Now, we all know that Indian economy has got integrated with the global economy. For example, if you look at the trade to GDP ratio of the Indian economy, when I say trade to GDP ratio, means the total value of exports plus the total value of imports. This trade to GDP ratio of Indian economy, this has increased to almost around 40% of India's GDP. And in fact, this trade to GDP ratio of India, you'll be surprised to know it is much higher than the Chinese economy. So Indian economy's integration with the global economy has increased, because of which whatever happens in the global economy, it has a tendency to affect the Indian economy, right? The best example happens to be the 2007-8 global financial crisis. So in the past, whenever any kind of crisis took place in the global economy, it invariably affected the Indian economy as well. But whenever global financial crisis took place in the past, it did not affect Indian economy much. There was no large-scale impact on the Indian economy. Question is why? Because whenever the global financial crisis took place in the past, these global financial crises took place not immediately one after the another. There was significant gap after every crisis. For example, let's go back to 1970s. 1970s, what crisis took place? The Gulf crisis, and then we had the Asian crisis in 1990s. Then 2007-8, we had the global financial crisis. So can I say there was gap of at least like 15 to 20 years between the global financial crisis which took place in the past? So because there was significant gap between the global financial crisis which took place in the past, India got sufficient time to recover from the previous global financial crisis. But something was different in the last 4 to 5 years. Particularly, if you focus upon the second decade of 21st century, that is in the last 4 to 5 years. What happened in the last 4 to 5 years? It being said that the global economy did not spare Indian economy, because Indian economy was repeatedly affected by global financial crisis one after the another. For example, the first effect of the global financial crisis was in the form of the economic slowdown which came into being because of COVID-19 pandemic. So because of COVID-19 pandemic, there was global economic slowdown. So there was contraction in the economic size of India. And we know what did the government do in response? Government came up with the Atmanirbhar Bharat package. To Atmanirbhar Bharat package, the government infused almost around 20 lakh crores into the Indian economy, because of which Indian economy registered a kind of V-shaped economic recovery, which we had discussed in the last year's budget. So Indian economy was slowly on path of recovery, but slowly as it was recovering, it was affected by another crisis. That crisis was in the form of Russia-Ukraine war. Because of Russia-Ukraine war, what happened? There was supply chain disruptions at the global economy. Because of supply chain disruptions, there was large-scale increase in the prices of essential commodities. Prices of essential commodities such as food, fuel, fertilizers drastically increased. So this Russia-Ukraine war has clearly shown to the Indian economy that inflation is a globalized phenomenon. When I say globalized phenomena, means when something happens in one part of the world, it has a tendency to affect all other parts of the world. So Russia-Ukraine war showed that inflation is a globalized phenomenon. So the Indian government took a number of supply side measures in order to bring down the inflation caused due to the Russia-Ukraine war. And as it was slowly recovering from Russia-Ukraine war, another wave of shock came. And this shock was in form of increase in the policy rates by the central banks of the advanced economies. So we know that in advanced economies, particularly countries such as US, European Union, the rate of inflation started increasing because of supply chain disruptions also, and because of large-scale infusion of money into their economies during the COVID-19 pandemic. So as these countries started facing a very high rate of inflation, central banks in these countries started increasing the policy rates. And we saw its negative impact on the Indian economy, which is referred to as taper tantrums. So because of increase in policy rates by the US Fed Bank, its negative repercussions on the Indian economy was in form of large-scale FPI outflows, decline in forex reserves, rupee value got depreciated, and there was increase in the yield rates of the government securities. All this impact, negative impact on the Indian economy, we call it as taper tantrum. So the second decade of 21st century was different from the previous times. In what way? Previously, whenever global financial crisis took place, they took place one after the another. I mean, like there's a significant gap. But this time, there was a triple shock. They took place immediately one after the another. So because of which the Indian economy's growth has obviously come down previously. But it is being said that Indian economy has shown significant resilience, significant flexibility to the global external shocks. This is because in spite of the external shocks, in terms of size of GDP, you can see nominal GDP, India's GDP is expected to be almost around $3.5 trillion by March 2023. Secondly, in terms of the real GDP growth rate, the Indian economy is set to register a GDP growth rate of almost around 7%. And India is set to make its comeback as one of the fastest growing major economies. So in a way, we are slowly coming back to the growth rate which we used to register prior to COVID-19 pandemic. The question is, what are the major drivers? Which factors have enabled Indian economy to register higher growth rate? Now, most of you must be knowing that one of the biggest driver of Indian economy is the private final consumption expenditure. Private final consumption expenditure is when people spend money on purchase of goods and services. So when people have started to increase their purchase of goods and services, that is when the private final consumption expenditure has increased automatically. Can I say it will increase the private sector investment? As the private sector's investment increases, we will be able to create more jobs. We will be able to increase the investment. And in a way, we will be able to promote the GDP growth rate. So one of the major dominant factor for the growth of Indian economy is increase in the consumption expenditure. In fact, this year's economic survey has highlighted that the consumption expenditure of Indian economy has increased to its highest level in last 5 years. So we know the consumption expenditure in the Indian economy was declining prior to COVID-19 pandemic also. But fortunately, for the first time in the last 5 years, our private final consumption expenditure has increased to its highest level. That's the first positive development as far as Indian economy is concerned. The second positive development is there is increase in the capex by the government. Capex here means capital expenditure. So we know that because of the global economic, because of the slowdown in the Indian economy, the government significantly ramped up its capital expenditure on creation of assets. And remember, in last year's budget, we have discussed that if government spends 1 rupee on creation of capital assets, it can increase the output by almost around 2.5 times. So this increase in government expenditure has also considered to be one of the major growth driver. And because the government has increased its investment, it has automatically led to crowding in effect, which means that private sector is now incentivized to make more investment into the Indian economy. So on one side, Indian economy is facing challenge. What challenge are we facing? The challenge is in terms of the external sector. External sector, we are facing challenge. Apart from that, you must be knowing the rate of inflation in India is still over the 4% targeted rate of inflation. This is the second most challenge. But good thing is the important growth drivers of the Indian economy, they have started increasing. The private final consumption has started increasing. The investment has started increasing. So in a way, we have a potential to register higher GDP growth rates in future. So if you look at this year's budget, right, to a large extent, this year's budget has carried forward the ideas which were incorporated in the last year's budget. In what way? Now imagine you're the finance minister of India, right? And sit down to formulate a budget. If you sit down to formulate a budget, what do you think would be a priority for you to propel the Indian economy forward? What will you focus upon? Look at the growth drivers. What will you focus upon? You'll control inflation. Good. Just look at the growth drivers. One is CapEx, capital expenditure by the government. This is what you'll do. And at the same time, don't think you'll try to increase the consumption expenditure also. It'll encourage the people to spend more on purchase of goods and services, right? So this is what this year's budget has precisely sought to do. By introducing certain changes in tax rates, the government has sought to increase the capital expenditure, and at the same time, government has significantly enhanced its expenditure on creation of assets. Did you understand the philosophy of this year's budget? So to a large extent, it's a continuation of the last year's budget philosophy. So let's now look at the blueprint for Amrit Kaal. So this was the blueprint for Amrit Kaal, which the finance minister had laid down in the last year's budget. So this is a kind of foundation for Indian economy as it moves from India at 75 to India at 100. So this entire blueprint for Amrit Kaal is based upon one important aspect, that is higher capital expenditure by the government. So as you can see, because of higher capital expenditure by the government, we can bring the Indian economy into a kind of virtuous economic cycle. And to do that, you can see what has happened to the overall expenditure on creation of assets. It has jumped significantly. Last year, it jumped from rupees 5 lakh crore to 7.5 lakh crore. This year, from 7.5 lakh crore, it has jumped to how much? Rupees 10 lakh crore. This is the amount of money which the central government is going to spend on creation of assets, which when expressed in terms of GDP, you can see it is 3.3%. Apart from that, we have a concept of effective capital expenditure. What is effective capital expenditure? If I've gone through the previous year budget, I have discussed this, but for benefit of all, let me tell you the concept of effective capital expenditure once again. Effective capital expenditure is the expenditure incurred by center on creation of capital assets plus grants given by the center to the states for creation of assets. So whatever grants the central government gives the states for creation of assets, if I add this to the total expenditure by center, what I get is the effective capital expenditure. So you can see the effective capital expenditure, kitna hai? 13.7 lakh crore, which when expressed in terms of GDP is quite high at 4.5%. Clear? Okay. So let's look at this year's budget, what it has focused upon. So before that, let's take up a practice question. Please have a look at the question. Which among the following is not the likely impact of rate hike by the US Fed Bank on the Indian economy? क्या लगता है आंसर इसका? I'm pretty sure the word not must be creating confusion in your mind, right? Good Anjali, good Mahesh, good Harsh, good Shika, yes, good Palash. The right answer to this particular question is decrease in the cost of servicing external debt. Remember, I told you that whenever there's a rate hike by US Fed Bank, it has an adverse impact on Indian economy. This adverse impact is called as taper tantrum. As part of taper tantrum, there is decrease in foreign portfolio investment. There is increase in bond yields. There is depreciation in the value of rupee. So let's say here that rupee value earlier was $1 is equal to 15. Now $1 has become equal to rupees 30. So this depreciation has taken place because of the rate hike by US Fed Bank. Let's say I'm a company based in India. So let's say last year, that is in 2022, I borrowed $1. When I borrowed $1, converted this $1 into rupees, how much rupees did I get? I got 15 rupees. Now let's say next year I'm required to repay this $1. Next year when I'm required to repay $1, how much rupees should I repay? I should repay how much? 30 rupees. So what will happen to my cost of servicing external debt? Can I say cost of servicing external debt will increase? But here what is mentioned? Decrease. And the question is asking not the likely impact. Not the likely impact means the right answer happens to be B. Hope you get understood the concept. Okay, good. Please have a look at this question. Which among the following best describes the effective capital expenditure in India? क्या लगता है? Good Tanishka. Good Abhidya. Good Gayatri. Okay. So you can see the effective capital expenditure is the entire capital expenditure by the center and grants in aid by the center to the states for creation of assets. So right answer is D. Look at the third practice question. Which among the following has not been the impact of higher capital expenditure by the government in the recent years? Once again, focus on the word not. Which of the following has not taken place because of higher capital expenditure by the government? Good. So we have seen that because of higher capital expenditure of the government, what all has taken place? Fiscal deficit of the government has increased. Obviously, it's quite evident because to undertake higher capital expenditure, the government has to borrow more money. If the government borrows more money, fiscal deficit to badega hi badega, right? Then multiplier effect in terms of GDP growth rate. I told you every 1 rupee which the government spends on creation of assets, it has a multiplier effect of how much? 2.5. It will increase the output by 2.5. Even this has taken place. Has crowding out effect taken place so far? It has not taken place. In fact, it has led to crowding in effect, right? So this is wrong. And accordingly, your right answer happens to be 3 only. Hope you are understanding what way questions can be asked. So can I say, if you look at this question is completely current affairs based. But how will you be able to answer this question? Will you be able to answer this question without going through budget? Not possible. Only when you go to the budget, you'll be able to answer such kind of questions. Right? Okay. Now coming to the 7 priority areas for the Union Budget 23-24, which according to the Finance Minister, she has called it as Saptarishi, 7 sages. As we are moving for Amrit Kaal, right? So what we need is Saptarishi. So as part of Saptarishi, as you can see, the government has identified 7 priority areas, which obviously is based upon your foundation. Your foundation is what? Infrastructure. Based upon this foundation of infrastructure, you are going to have 7 pillars. So these are investment, reaching the last mile. When I say reaching the last mile, it basically means catering to the needs of the poor and marginalized sections of Indian society. For example, as part of reaching the last mile, this year's budget, the Finance Minister has announced a separate scheme for particularly vulnerable tribal groups. I hope you must have studied about a category of tribal groups in India, which are called as particularly vulnerable tribal groups. So for the benefit of these particularly vulnerable tribal groups, we have launched a new mission. Similarly, as part of inclusive growth and development, we have drastically increased the overall expenditure on health. See, one of the biggest concern with respect to healthcare expenditure in India is we are underspending on health. For example, the National Health Policy 2017 says we must spend at least 2.5% of GDP on health. This is the target. But until last year, we were spending just 1.5%. The target kitna tha? 2.5. But hum kitna spend kar rahe the? 1.5. But this year, we have increased our healthcare expenditure to 2.1% of GDP. This is our healthcare expenditure. Similarly, we have increased our educational expenditure to 3.1% of GDP. Further, as part of inclusive growth and development, we have launched a number of schemes and initiatives. What are these schemes and initiatives? We will discuss that later. Then, we have also seen this as an opportunity to bring about reforms in the financial sector. Like I said, one important initiative is with respect to setting up of the National Financial Information Registry. Then we have also set up a new fund called as Urban Infrastructure Development Fund. All of these initiatives we'll discuss one by one. Next is youth power. We all know that India is facing demographic dividend, right? Where a major chunk of India's population is in the working age group. So in order to reap demographic dividend, in order to harness the potential of youths in India, this year's budget has focused a lot on skilling the youths. For example, let us come up with an initiative to promote apprenticeship among the youths in India. Green growth. We all know that India has committed itself to net carbon zero emissions, right? Apart from that, we have come up with the new NDC targets. In order to realize these ambitious targets, this year's budget has undoubtedly focused a lot on promoting green growth or sustainable growth and development. And last is unleashing the potential. Unleashing the potential means here we are focused a lot on bringing about reforms in the governance so as to improve the ease of doing business and help the Indian economy to move forward. For example, right now we have large number of civil laws in India. The problem with some of these civil laws is violation of some important provisions of this civil laws has a provision for imprisonment, which goes against the idea of ease of doing business. So we have identified such provisions in our civil laws which provide for imprisonment, and we have tried to tone down on the punishment for the violation of such provisions. So some of the provisions which provided for imprisonment, those provisions we have amended to ensure that violation of such provisions do not provide for imprisonment, rather it may provide only for penalty or a fine. So these kind of reforms we have brought about. Now here, when it look at the budget, right, this is what the finance minister has announced. But when you look at the UPSC prelims or UPSC mains examination, it would be incorrect if I discuss the union budget as per these priority areas, because these are not the priority areas according to your UPSC syllabus, right? So what I'm going to do is, what all announcements the finance ministers announced, all of these announcements, I'm going to club it under different themes. And I'm going to discuss the union budget as per the theme wise. So let's start with the first theme. You can see these are the themes which I'm going to discuss. So we have theme of agriculture, followed by theme of banking and finance, followed by theme of infrastructure development. Then we have the theme of social sector, and then we have the theme of sustainable development. So totally we have 5 themes. Apart from that, there are some minor initiatives announced in the budget. All of these minor initiatives I will incorporate in the prelims compass. I'm going to discuss only on the major initiatives of the budget, right? So let's start with the first important theme, that is the theme of agriculture. There's one particular theme which is missing, which you could identify also. This particular theme is about taxation proposals of this year's budget. So taxation proposals incorporated in this year's budget. This taxation proposal will be, I will be covering the taxation proposals along with the economic survey discussion in the next Sunday. So when I take up the economic survey discussion, in the economic survey, you have a chapter called as public finance. In this particular chapter, I'll club the budget taxation proposals so that you have that comprehensive understanding about the public finance. Okay. And let me tell you, after each and every session which we are going to conduct, like this week, it's a session on budget. Next week, next 2 weeks, that is both Sundays, we'll be having session on economic survey. After each and every discussion, you'll have a separate quiz. This quiz will be uploaded on the eLearn platform. In this quiz, you'll have the questions which would be likely to be asked from the budget as well as economic survey. So you can attend the session, go to the session. Once you're done with the session, please attempt the quiz. It will help you to revise whatever we have discussed so far. Clear? Okay. Okay. Now coming to the agriculture sector. In the agriculture sector, let's start with the first initiative. The first initiative is Agriculture Accelerator Fund. Now, once I discuss everything related to Agriculture Accelerator Fund, I will come back and solve these two prelims questions for practice. So let's start with the concept of Agriculture Accelerator Fund. Now here, you must have known that Indian agriculture is facing three most important problems or challenges. The first important problem that we are facing is the input cost of Indian agriculture has increased. Farmers are required to spend a lot of money on purchasing of inputs such as seeds, fertilizers, and so on. Secondly, the productivity or yield of Indian agriculture has reduced. Third, the farmers are unable to get the right price for the agricultural produce. So there are three important problems: higher input cost, lower productivity, and lower prices on the agricultural produce. And the problem that we are facing right now is, if you look at technology, technology has penetrated almost all the sectors of the Indian economy. Like it has penetrated the industrial sector, it has penetrated the services sector, it has penetrated the education sector, right? But so far, one sector which has largely remained untouched or poor adoption of technology is your agriculture sector. So, in order to promote digital technologies in the field of agriculture, that is, in order to promote digital technologies such as, say, robotics, big data, artificial intelligence, precision farming, and so on, in the field of agriculture, this year's budget has decided to set up a new fund. It is called as Agriculture Accelerator Fund. Through this particular fund, the government of India is going to provide the funding support to the startups in the field of agriculture, so that these startups are able to support the farmers with respect to adoption of digital technologies. Now, I can just say this and move on. But do you think that only this part is important from the perspective of prelims or mains examination? Not at all. Particularly, if you look at GS paper 3 syllabus, in GS paper 3 syllabus, you have a topic, role of e-technology in agriculture. So here, since this is an initiative in the budget, in the UPSC mains examination, you could very well get a question related to the digital technologies in agriculture. That is, what are its benefits? What are its challenges? What initiatives the government has taken to promote digital technologies in agriculture, right? So what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to discuss everything related to adoption of digital technologies in agriculture. I'm going to discuss kya benefits and what initiatives the government has taken, what are the challenges, so that if you get a question in UPSC mains related to this particular topic, you should be able to answer such a question. So let's start with the topic. Please have a look at the mind map on digital technologies in agriculture. So let's start with the benefits part. See, I told you there are three important challenges with the Indian agriculture is facing: higher input cost, lower productivity, and lower prices which the farmers get when they sell the agricultural produce, right? It is being said that digital technologies have a potential to address each of these problems and double the income levels of the farmers. How? Let's understand. Let's look at the access to inputs. Digital technologies such as ICT, artificial intelligence, big data can enable farmers to have access to inputs. How? For example, you have a company, a agri-tech company, agriculture startup company in India called as Jai Kisan. This Jai Kisan company, it gives loans to the farmers. Now, how is it better as compared to loans given by banks and NBFCs? Now, when you look at banks, right, banks have to set up physical branches in rural India. When they set up physical branches in rural India, they have to recover the operating cost. To recover the operating cost, when they give loans to farmers, can I say the banks will give loans at a higher rate of interest? But look at these agriculture startup companies. Do they have any physical infrastructure? They don't have physical infrastructure. How are they giving loans? Through online, through internet. So since their operating cost is lower, can I say that they will be able to give loans at a much cheaper rate of interest? So this is the potential of this company called as Jai Kisan. Similarly, you could look at another company called as Gold Farm. This particular company is trying to promote agricultural mechanization. So one of the biggest problem that we associate with Indian agriculture is it has remained a kind of subsistence farming. We are not adopted mechanization. So this particular company has enabled the farmers to adopt agriculture machines and tools. Similarly, enhance productivity. So for example, look at this particular startup company, Fasal. This Fasal company has enabled the farmers to have access to artificial intelligence. It has enabled the farmers to have access to big data. Now you must be wondering, big data ka yahan pe kya kaam hai? What's the use of big data in agriculture? Now can I say, under big data, we will be able to analyze a large volume of data. So in the field of agriculture, we can analyze large volume of data related to prices of agricultural commodities. So when we analyze the data related to prices of agricultural commodities, we can clearly communicate to the farmers as to which agricultural commodities fetch higher prices. So don't you think it has a potential to bring about agricultural diversification in the agriculture sector? Right now, what are the farmers growing? Just rice and wheat. But if you communicate to the farmers that if they grow alternative crops, they can get higher prices through big data, probably it can promote agriculture diversification. Next, what is ENAM? ENAM is an integrated domestic market which seeks to link all the APMCs across India through an online portal. So through the ENAM portal, a farmer based in one district of India, he can sell his agriculture produce throughout India where he is going to get the highest price. So digital technology has a potential to increase the prices received by the farmers, reduce post-harvest losses. Now, when you look at the post-harvest losses in India, it is in the range of almost around 20 to 25%. Almost 20 to 25% of food grains, fruits and vegetables get wasted every year. And this is as high as rupees 90,000 crores. So how can we reduce post-harvest losses? Best example is we can enable the startup companies to directly procure the agriculture produce from the farmers, right? For example, we have startup companies such as Ninja Cart, which is, creating that kind of backward linkages to the farmers, directly procuring the agriculture produce from the farmers and then selling it to the customers. Same, we have eChopal. So digital technologies undoubtedly has a lot of potential with respect to transforming the Indian agriculture. In fact, the Committee on Doubling Farmers' Income, that is Dalwai panel, it has made a very beautiful statement. The statement made by Dalwai panel is, adoption of digital technologies has a potential to transform Indian agriculture to become more industrialized. Look at the word. Indian agriculture can become more industrialized. What is meaning of this? Indian agriculture can become more developed. And at the same time, this committee has also said that it can bring about what is referred to as constructive disruption. Constructive disruption of the Indian agriculture. Disruption for a good cause. So we know that already government has taken a number of initiatives to promote digital technologies. We can see Kisan Suvidha app, which provides the necessary information to the farmers. Then we have a Uber-like app, which the farmers can download. And through this particular app, they can rent out various agriculture machineries, machines, tools, which can in turn help us promote the farm mechanization. Then we have ENAM, Agmark Net. Any idea what is this Agmark Net? किसी को पता है? Agmark Net. No? Okay. Agmark Net here is basically a kind of portal, a kind of platform which disseminates information to the farmers related to prices of agricultural produce. So on a real-time basis, it communicates to farmers as to what is the present price of different agriculture produce. So this particular portal is very important for price discovery. It is quite important, a decision-making tool by the farmers based upon which the farmers can decide as to which crops they can grow. Then we have Kisan call centers for the queries of the farmers. Then Niti Aayog has started a pilot project on precision agriculture. And look at some states in India. Some states in India, such as Karnataka as well as Maharashtra, they have gone one step forward and they have set up separate funds to promote startups in the agri-tech sector. So can I say, when state governments have set up their own funds to promote agri-tech startups, why should the central government lag behind, right? So taking a cue, the central government has now decided to set up a new fund called as Agriculture Accelerator Fund. Through this fund, we are going to support agri-tech startups by young entrepreneurs in rural areas. But in spite of the potential associated with the digital technologies, adoption of digital technologies is going to be extremely challenging looking at the present state of Indian economy. What are these challenges? For example, we know that most of the agriculture land holding in India is fragmented. So you must be knowing that almost 86% of farmers in India are small and marginal farmers. They're extremely poor farmers. And when they are so poor, do you think they will be able to afford these advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, precision farming, big data? It's very, very less. Affordability is also a problem. And look at this, lack of enabling policy framework. What is this? Now, when you look at the government support to the farmers, government has always supported the farmers in terms of providing various subsidies on inputs. Like government provides subsidies with respect to water, electricity, credit, etc. But so far, the government has not come out with a separate initiative as such to promote adoption of digital technologies in the field of agriculture. So this was a lacune which was existing since long. To a certain extent, this particular problem has been addressed in this year's budget by setting up a new fund, accelerator fund. And they can see the other problems such as lack of skill set, lack of extension. What is extension? Extension means that whenever new developments are taking place in the field of technology, ultimately these new developments would have to be adopted at the farm level. So this flow of technology from research institutes to the farm, this we call it as extension. How it is done? It is done through KVKs. You must have heard of Krishi Vigyan Kendras, right? So Krishi Vigyan Kendras at the district level, they communicate to the farmers as to what are the benefits of the advanced technology and how that advanced technology can benefit the farmers. But it is being said that the extension facilities in India is quite poor. So we have to ramp up the extension facilities so that the farmers are able to adopt these new age technologies. So this is what you must understand as far as digital technologies in the field of agriculture is concerned. Now just imagine a question in UPSC mains examination. What question can you get in UPSC mains examination with respect to role of e-technology in agriculture, which is part of your UPSC mains syllabus? One, you could get a question related to the potential of digital technologies in transforming Indian agriculture. We have discussed this. Another, we could get a question with respect to initiative which the government has taken with respect to promotion of digital technology. We have discussed that. Or we could get a very simple question about what are the challenges in adoption of digital technology. So if you get any question related to the digital technology in agriculture, you would be able to write an answer to that particular question. That is what is my intention. I hope we are clear now, right? So let's take up a practice question and try to solve the answer to that particular practice question. Okay, please have a look at the question. Digital technologies have a potential to address the problems faced by Indian agriculture. In the light of this, discuss various challenges in the adoption of e-technology for the benefit of farmers. What is the primary demand of the question? The primary demand of the question is with respect to challenges. But can you directly start writing challenges of digital technology in agriculture? No, right? So your answer should be very structured, right? So in order to structure your answer, what you could do here is you could start with the potential of digital technology in agriculture. Now, what statement can you write here? Anyone? What statement can you write with respect to potential of digital technologies? Good. All of you are good, Surya. Good, Abhishek. The statement which Dalwai panel has mentioned with respect to how digital technologies can transform the Indian agriculture, right? So remember I told you, Dalwai panel, what did it say? The Dalwai panel has said that adoption of digital technology in agriculture has a potential to make Indian agriculture more industrialized and create constructive disruptions. So you can start with the potential. Once you start with the potential, you could, in the body, even though the primary demand is about the challenges, you could just highlight the initiatives and benefits. When you look at benefits, instead of writing it in terms of points, you could just incorporate a hub and spoke diagram like this, and you can write 5 to 6 benefits. By doing that, you'll be able to save on the number of words. So you're able to do justice to the question also, and you're able to save on the words also. And then focus predominantly on the challenges. Remember, we discussed all the challenges, right? After writing about all the challenges, then you could write the conclusion or the way forward. Are we clear with this? But let me show you the model answer to this particular question as well. Let's look at the model answer. Please have a look at the model answer. Like I said, the benefits of digital technology in agriculture is like a hub and spoke diagram. The initiatives I've highlighted, but the main focus should be on the challenges. So you can see the adoption of digital technologies face multifaceted challenges. All the challenges you can write down here, right? Someone was asking me a question about elaborating lack of enabling policy framework. You can see adoption of technologies through subsidies yet to gain momentum. That is what I was trying to convey. And look at the conclusion. The Dalwai panel has highlighted that digital technologies can emerge as a key enabler for doubling the farmers' income. Going forward, these constraints and challenges should be addressed at the earliest so that agriculture sector reaps the benefits of the digital technologies or ICT. I hope you are clear, all of you. Okay, fine. Let's look at the practice question, MCQ number 4. It's very easy question. Good. Okay. If this is easy, let me find out how many of you will be able to correctly answer this question. Agriculture Infrastructure Fund. Suna hai? Have you heard of this fund? Good, Abhishek. Good, Monica. Okay, just understand this concept of Agriculture Infrastructure Fund. Let me discuss about Agriculture Infrastructure Fund. I'm just discussing this because do not get confused between Agriculture Infrastructure Fund and Agriculture Accelerator Fund. They both are different. When you look at Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, this is a fund which was unveiled by the government as part of Atmanirbhar Bharat package. As part of this particular fund, the government is providing loans to primary agriculture credit societies, farmer producer organizations, as well as startups in order to improve the post-harvest management infrastructure. What is post-harvest infrastructure? Post-harvest infrastructure could be like setting up of collection centers at the farm level, setting up of the primary processing centers, setting up of warehouses, storage by startups, by PSCS, that is primary agriculture credit societies, and so on. Are we giving them grants or are we giving them loans? We are giving them loans, not grants. So the first statement says it provides loans, which is correct. Second statement says all the loans provided under this facility have interest subvention by the government. What is interest subvention? Interest subvention means subsidy on payment of interest. For example, let's say you have a startup company which has taken loan under this particular fund, and the rate of interest on this particular loan is equal to 8%. So when the government is providing interest subvention, it means that the startup company did not pay the entire 8% rate of interest. The government might pay some interest on behalf of the startup company. For example, the startup company might pay only 6% rate of interest, and remaining 2% rate of interest will be paid by government on behalf of the startup company. So this 2% rate of interest which government is paying on behalf of startup, usko hum kya bolte hain? Interest subvention. So government has said that all the loans will have interest subvention. Look at the third component. It says it is a centrally sponsored scheme. I hope all of you must be knowing the difference between central sector scheme and centrally sponsored scheme. Central sector scheme is 100% financed by the center. Centrally sponsored schemes are financed by center and states in certain proportion. When you look at Agriculture Infrastructure Fund, it is a central sector scheme, which means 100% financed by whom? By the central government. So third statement which is given here is incorrect. So right answer is 1 and 2. The reason why I discussed this particular question is I just wanted you to understand that Agriculture Accelerator Fund and Agriculture Infrastructure Fund are different. Are we clear now, all of you? Okay. Next, coming to the cotton production in India. So this year's budget has sought to promote the production of extra long staple cotton. So let's first understand what is the present status of cotton production in India, and then we'll understand as to why do we need to promote the production of extra long staple cotton. This is what I'm going to discuss. Sabse pehle, let's look at the present status of cotton production in India. So right now, India accounts for 40% of area under the cotton production at a global level. So in terms of area, India occupies the largest area under cotton cultivation at the global level. Secondly, India accounts for 22% of the world's cotton production. And India is right now the world's largest cotton producer. So both in terms of area under cotton cultivation as well as the cotton production, India has occupied first place. In some of the sources, it has been mentioned that China is the largest producer of cotton. But as per the latest data, that is as per the government data itself, India is the largest producer of cotton. Now you must have seen cotton when it is grown in fields, right? It is in a form of cotton ball. You must have seen cotton, right? It's a kind of ball. So what happens is from this particular ball, we take out cotton threads. Cotton threads are taken out and we have the different types of cotton. Now, depending upon the length of the cotton thread that we get from the cotton ball, we have different types of cotton. Like we have short staple cotton, medium staple cotton, and long staple cotton. Right now in India, we are trying to promote more cultivation of medium staple cotton and long staple cotton. So in order to promote the cultivation of medium staple cotton and long staple cotton, the government of India announces MSP. I hope you must be knowing minimum support price. It is announced for medium staple and long staple cotton. Once the MSP is announced, the Cotton Corporation of India, which is a PSU, comes into play and it undertakes the procurement of the medium staple cotton and long staple cotton. So आपको क्या पता होना चाहिए that there is no MSP for short staple cotton. We have MSP only for two varieties of cotton, that is medium staple and long staple. Okay? And what about extra long staple cotton? Now this is the most interesting part. Like I said, depending upon the cotton length, we have different types of cotton. When you look at extra long staple cotton, it's a cotton whose length is more than 32.5 mm. We call it as extra long staple cotton. Now, why it is so significant? So when you look at the short staple cotton, the cotton of short thread, it is very difficult to work upon these short staple cotton, which means it's very difficult to weave the short staple cotton into textiles. Even if you weave them into textile, the textile quality that you get, it is quite inferior. Staple means length, Archie. Staple means your length. We're talking about the length of the cotton. So here, the short staple cotton, we cannot weave it into textiles. Even if you weave it into textiles, the quality of textile is very inferior. It is not durable. Such a textile has more wrinkles. So these are the problems. But when you look at the long staple cotton, right? The long staple cotton, since it is very long, it can be woven into textiles easily. The textiles that we get out of this extra long staple cotton, it is considered to be very superior quality textile. It is more durable. It has much higher finish. It has less wrinkles. So you must have come across certain clothing brands in India which sell premium quality of shirts, premium quality of pants, cotton shirts and cotton pants. These premium quality of cotton shirts and cotton pants, they are made from what? The extra long staple cotton. There are two famous, world famous examples of extra long staple cotton. One is Egyptian Giza cotton, and the second one is US Supima cotton. These are the world famous extra long staple cotton. Now, what is the present status of extra long staple cotton in India? Now, when you look at 1996, the share of extra long staple cotton in the overall cotton production of India, this was as high as around 10%. But since then, the share of extra long staple cotton has dropped to just 1%. Right now, there are two dominant varieties of extra long staple cotton which are grown in India. Please remember the names. The names are Suvin and DCH32. Important from the perspective of prelims. Apart from that, please look at the states where we are growing the extra long staple cotton. There are only 3 states in which we are growing extra long staple cottons. These states are Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Madhya Pradesh. So like I said, because we have not focused much upon the production of extra long staple cotton, there is huge demand supply mismatch. So much so that almost around 90% of extra long staple cotton that we use in India, it is imported from other countries. Now, if you look at India, can I say India has been traditionally a cotton growing country? For example, if you go back to the East India Company's times prior to say 18th century, India was among one of the finest producers of cotton at a global level. But look what has happened to the present state. Are we Atmanirbhar as far as cotton production is concerned? Absolutely not. So in order to promote Atmanirbharta with respect to the production of cotton, the government of India has sought to promote the production of extra long staple cotton. How are we going to increase the production of extra long staple cotton? So when you look at this extra long staple cotton, you should understand that this variety of cotton cannot be grown throughout India. it can be grown in only certain pockets of India. Why? Because this variety of cotton requires ideal climatic conditions, ideal soil conditions, ideal water requirements. So what we are going to do is, we are going to identify the clusters in India where we can promote the cultivation of extra long staple cotton. In these clusters, we are going to promote the cultivation of this cotton, especially through the public-private partnership between farmers, state, and industry. So we are going to have a kind of public-private partnership where private sector will bring in its own expertise, in terms of development of new varieties of seeds for extra long staple cotton. The state government will provide the necessary funding support to the farmers to adopt the cultivation of extra long staple cotton, and farmers will also be provided with adequate market linkages. So if you know this much, more than sufficient. And here, when I say long staple, please understand long staple will also include extra long staple also. Got this? Okay. I hope you're clear, all of you. Okay, so let's take up a practice question. Look at this practice question number 6. Good. The right answer to this particular question is 1 and 2 only. What about this? This is a very easy question. Some of you are giving me the answer as A because you're not reading all the options, and that is what UPSC also does. Answer can't be A. Please read all the options. Yes. Hybrid varieties of extra long staple cotton cultivated in India. It's not A. Got it? Okay. Okay. Now coming to the horticulture sector. Now with respect to horticulture sector, the Union Finance Minister has announced a new program. The name of the program is Atmanirbhar Horticulture Clean Plant Program. So as part of this particular program, the government is trying to provide for safe and clean planting material to the farmers involved in the cultivation of horticultural crops. But I will take this as an opportunity to discuss everything related to horticulture sector, that is potential challenges, initiatives, and so on. So let's start with the present status of horticulture sector. See, when I say horticulture, the first thing that comes to your mind is just fruits and vegetables. But you must understand that horticulture sector does not just include fruits and vegetables. It includes fruits, vegetables, flowers, spices, plantation crops, aromatic crops, all of this. Together, we call it as the horticulture sector. And you know what's the best part about the horticulture sector? The horticulture sector occupies just 14% of the area under agriculture, but it contributes 33% of agricultural GDP. So with less amount of area, it is able to contribute more to the agriculture GDP. That's a most significant part about the horticulture sector. And the second important thing that you must understand is from last 5 to 6 years, the overall production of horticulture crops has surpassed the production of the food grains. Annually, the production of food grains is somewhere around 300 million tons, but the production of horticulture crops is much higher at 330 million tons. It's another important prelims pointer that you must remember. And what's the significance of horticulture sector? You can see it can provide us with nutritional security, particularly fruits and vegetables. Can I say they're rich in vitamins, micronutrients, macronutrients? So it has a potential to address the nutritional insecurity that we are facing right now. It can enhance the income levels of the farmers. For example, according to Dalwai panel, 1 hectare of agriculture land, which is right now used for monocropping, that 1 hectare, if you divert it for cultivation of horticulture crops, automatically farmers' income can increase by 1 lakh. Can you see the potential? 1 hectare of agriculture land, if you use it for horticulture, automatically income level of farmer will increase by 1 lakh. So huge potential. And it can also promote secondary agriculture. What is secondary agriculture? Secondary agriculture means food processing industries. We all know food processing industry is one of the sunrise sector of the Indian economy, right? So it has a potential to significantly improve the food processing sector in India. But the horticulture sector is facing a number of problems and challenges. What problems are we facing? Sabse pehle, it has a long gestation period. For example, if a farmer has to decide to grow mango, orange, grapes, etc., can I say the gestation period for growth of these crops is quite high, like 3 years, 4 years. So farmer has to wait for a much longer time before he starts earning income, right? So that's one of the biggest concern. Second is senile orchards. What is senile? Senile means old orchards. So whatever horticulture orchards that we have in India, they are very old. Since they are very old, the kind of technology which they are using for producing horticulture crops, it is very outdated. So that is why the yield of the orchards is very low. The quality of planting material is very poor. So even though we have set up nurseries across India to provide for good planting material, we have not been able to provide good planting material to the farmers. Look at this, poor tree canopy management. What is this tree canopy management? Tree canopy management is an important component of the horticulture sector. So when the horticulture crops are growing, especially during the initial stages like mango trees or orange, apple, etc., here we have to provide for the poor for good canopy management. For example, if a tree, when it is growing, it has the potential to grow the branches very close to the ground, especially during the initial stage. So we need to cut these branches in the initial stages so that the tree grows vertically. So this is concept of canopy management. But since farmers do not have proper idea about this, the overall yield of the horticulture crops is quite lower. And since we do not have adequate cold storage facilities, we have high post-harvest losses, which I told you, like almost 20 to 25% of fruits and vegetables that are grown in India, they get wasted annually. So to address these problems, earlier the government of India had launched this particular mission for integrated development of horticulture. Taking this forward, now in this year's budget, we have launched a new Atmanirbhar Horticulture Clean Plant Program, under which we are promoting disease-free, high-quality planting material. Just like how we are setting up nurseries across India, under this particular program, we are going to set up clean plant centers across the country. And remember who is going to implement this? It is going to be implemented by National Horticulture Board. So, what more has to be done in order to reap the benefits of the horticulture sector? So you can see we have to focus upon Horticulture Plus. What is Horticulture Plus? Within the horticulture sector, there are certain crops which have a potential to fetch a much higher prices for the farmers. These crops are called as Horticulture Plus crops. Some of these crops include flowers, cashew, cocoa, spices, etc. So we must focus more upon Horticulture Plus strategies so that the farmers are able to earn more income. We need to expand the overall area under horticulture, especially by focusing on the peri-urban areas. What is peri-urban area? Peri-urban area is a kind of an area around the main urban areas. Like we have Delhi NCR region, right? So around the Delhi NCR region, we can focus on promoting the cultivation of fruits and vegetables. Now, why it is good? It has a dual benefit. Dual benefit as in like when we grow horticulture crops, that is fruits and vegetables in and around the Delhi NCR region, first and foremost, the fruits and vegetables which are so grown, they can be transported to the urban areas without any additional transportation cost. The post-harvest losses will also be lower. That's one benefit. And don't you think we as customers will also get benefit in terms of fresh fruits and vegetables, right? So transportation costs will reduce, and at the same time, we as customers will also have access to better quality fruits and vegetables. So we have to focus on peri-urban horticulture, focus on high yielding hybrid varieties. So look at the green revolution. Why was green revolution so successful? Because we focus on high yielding varieties of rice, wheat, etc. Similarly, we need to focus upon high yielding varieties of horticultural crops. And lastly, we have to promote mixed farming. Mixed farming, as you know, is we must encourage the farmers to cultivate fruits and vegetables along with the cultivation of food grains. By going for mixed farming, can I say the risk associated with the agriculture sector will drastically reduce, because farmers will not be dependent on just one crop. They will be dependent upon multiple crops. They'll also be able to earn income throughout the year. So please have a look at the mind map on the horticulture sector. So these are the strategies, the problems, and the budget proposal. Are you able to see the entire screen? All of you? Okay. Bottom one line is not visible. That's okay. I guess you can manage it, the one line. Ultimately, the PPT will be shared with you after the class. You can go through that part. Okay. Okay. The reason why I discuss this topic in so much depth is because look at the question asked in Mains 2018. Assess the role of National Horticulture Mission in boosting the production, productivity, and income of the horticulture farms. So that is why we have this particular practice question about which we will be discussing. I'll show it on the next screen. But meanwhile, look at this practice question. India is not the largest producer. India is the second largest producer. The production of horticulture crops is higher than food grain production. It is correct. Look at the practice question. What do you think are the opportunities and challenges in promoting golden revolution in India? Also suggest some strategies to address these challenges. When I say golden revolution, what is golden revolution? Golden revolution is with respect to horticulture sector. But imagine if you come across this question in UPSC mains, and let's say you don't know the meaning of golden revolution, and let's say this question is asked for 15 marks. Will you be able to write an answer to such a question? So one word can actually help you to get 15 marks. So here, just understand golden revolution means horticulture sector, right? So here, the question is very simple. Opportunities and challenges. In terms of opportunities, what can you write? I told you the points. It has a potential to address nutritional insecurity. It has a potential to increase the farmers' income level. It has a potential to give a fillip to secondary agriculture. In terms of challenges also, we have discussed the challenges. Strategies also we have discussed. So you can look at a suggested answer structure. I hope you'll be able to write an answer to this question, all of you. Okay, good. Okay. Now coming to the next initiative. The next initiative is with respect to promotion of millets. Now you all must be knowing that based upon a proposal forwarded by India, the United Nations General Assembly has decided to declare the year 2023 as International Year of Millets. What are millets? Millets, as you know, they are the major millets and minor millets such as jawar, bajra, ragi, foxtail millet, and so on, right? All of these are the millets. So in this year's budget, the finance minister has announced that the Indian Institute of Millet Research, which is located in Hyderabad, it will be supported to become a center of excellence. So the idea behind this initiative is to promote India as a global hub for millets. So this is the basic idea. Now, with respect to millets in India, millets have discussed in much greater detail in the last year's budget. So in last year's budget, I have discussed almost every part about the millets in India. In fact, the same slide I had used in the last year's budget, wherein I had discussed the significance of millets, the cropping pattern, the problems related to millet production, what initiatives the government has taken, and what strategies we must adopt to improve to increase the production of millets in India. And let me tell you, this topic of millets has been repeatedly appearing in the news since last 2 years. That is why this topic is important both from the perspective of a prelims as well as a mains examination. Since I have already discussed this topic in much greater detail in last year's budget, I would not repeat the same topic once again, right? So those of you who have not seen the last year's budget, please go back, watch the last year's budget, because the last year budget is equally important even for this year prelims also, right? So let's take up the practice question. With respect to millets production in India, consider the following statements. What do you think is the answer? Please focus. Here I'm not asking correct statements. I'm asking incorrect statements. सबसे पहले, India is the largest producer of millets in the world. Yes. There has been decline both in terms of area as well as production. In terms of area, there has been decline in the area under millets, but there has been increase in the production of millets. So the statement which is given here is incorrect. The yield of millets in India is lower than the global average. And this is also very interesting. Usually when you look at the yield of agriculture crops in India, normally we keep criticizing that the yield of agriculture crops in India is lower than that of the global average. But fortunately, in case of millets, the yield of millets in India is much higher than the global average. That is why I have incorporated this. So the yield of millets in India is actually higher, not lower. So even the third statement is incorrect. So right answer is 2 and 3 only. Okay. Now coming to the institutional credit. So with respect to providing institutional credit to the farmers, this year's budget has announced that almost around 20 lakh crore will be provided to the farmers in the form of institutional credit. So we all know the importance of institutional credit to the agriculture, right? Institutional credit is coming in the form of loans from banks, from NBFCs. So by providing for institutional credit, we can promote a virtuous cycle of agricultural development as well as income levels. So just remember this particular flow chart so that if you get a question in UPSC mains about agriculture credit and its significance, you can incorporate this particular flow chart. I hope this flow chart is self-explanatory. I don't have to explain this flow chart, right? Just remember the target. The target is to have 20 lakh crores. Other points are self-explanatory, which I hope you should be able to go through. Okay. Look at the practice question number 10. I hope all of you must have heard about priority sector lending. क्या लगता है आंसर इसका? Okay. सबसे पहले, like I said, farmers in India get loans from two sources, institutional sources and non-institutional sources. The best part is since 1970s, the share of institutional credit has been higher than the share of non-institutional credit. The share of institutional credit right now is almost 70%, and the share of non-institutional credit is 30%. So the first statement which is given here is correct. Second one says that there is separate sub-target for priority sector lending to small and marginal farmers, tenant farmers, and landless farmers. Let's understand. I hope all of you must be knowing that banks in India have different priority sector lending targets. Like for most of the scheduled commercial banks, the priority sector lending target is 40%. For RRBs, it is how much? 75%. For small finance banks also it is 75%. Out of this, certain percentage of loans should be compulsorily given to the agriculture sector, which is normally like 18%. Out of this 18% loans to the agriculture sector, 10% of the loans has to be compulsorily given to small and marginal farmers. So one of the biggest criticisms of the priority sector lending is there is no sub-target when it comes to tenant farmers or the landless farmers. And the statement here says that there is a separate sub-target for tenant farmers as well as landless farmers, which is actually incorrect. I hope you understood the point here, right? So right answer is 1 only. And look at this, which among the following are considered as priority sector loans for the agriculture sector? Now, why is it important? In last year's prelims, there was a question, which among the following loans are part of the loans under Kisan Credit Card, short-term loans under Kisan Credit Card? So on similar lines, I have formulated this particular question. And please do remember that all of these loans are considered as priority sector loans for the agriculture sector. All these loans. So crop loans, Kisan Credit Card, loans against negotiable warehousing receipts, loans to agriculture startups, loans to food processing industries, all of this is part of priority sector loans for agriculture sector. Clear? Okay. Now coming to last initiative under the agriculture sector. The last initiative is with respect to fisheries sector. I hope all of you must be knowing about Blue Revolution, right? Blue Revolution is with respect to development of fisheries sector. For development of fisheries sector, the government of India has launched a scheme called as Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. In this year's budget, the finance minister has announced that a separate component of this particular scheme would be launched. But the details of these components as to what this particular component will include, they are not being highlighted by the finance minister so far. So hopefully in future, the government will soon come out with the detailed guidelines about this new component. So that is why if you know this much, more than sufficient. So let's look at the practice MCQ number 12 here. Correct answer is India is the second largest fish producing country in the world. Second largest, it is second largest fish producing country in the world, which is correct. The share of marine fisheries is higher than the inland fisheries. क्या लगता है? Fisheries we can get from two sources, marine sources and inland sources. Inland sources means rivers, ponds, lakes, and so on. What has happened in India is over a period of time, the share of inland fisheries has increased and the share of marine fisheries has reduced. So right now the inland fisheries account for the highest share. So the statement which is given here is incorrect. So right answer is 1 only. Are we clear with this concept? Okay. So let's move to the next theme. The next theme is about the theme of banking and finance. So let's start with the first important initiative, that is National Financial Information Registry. Now please focus here. Whatever I'm going to discuss, it is there on the slide. I will show the slide later. Just focus because this is quite important. We're going to discuss about National Financial Information Registry. What is this registry and why we have set up this particular registry? Now, all of you know that when banks give loans to different customers, the banks need credit information about the borrowers. Credit information about the borrowers means how much loans have people taken in the past and whether they have been able to repay the loans on time or not. So this credit information, which is provided to the banks, in turn helps the banks to distinguish between good borrowers and bad borrowers. So when credit information is provided, banks can give more amount of loans to the good borrowers, and they can turn down the loans to the bad borrowers. And just imagine if you don't have this kind of credit information. In absence of credit information, it may lead to a kind of phenomena which is referred to as adverse selection. What is adverse selection? Adverse selection means, in case of adverse selection, that is when credit information is not available to the banks, bad borrowers, that is people who have bad credit history, they may get loans at a lesser rate of interest, and good borrowers, people who have got good credit history, they may get loans at a higher rate of interest. Why? Because we don't have a credit information, right? So how do we facilitate credit information to the banks? To give credit information to the banks, what we have right now is credit information companies in India. When you look at these credit information companies in India, right now, we have 4 credit information companies. These 4 credit information companies are Credit Information Bureau India Limited. I hope all of you must have heard about CIBIL score, right? So this is a agency which provides for CIBIL score. Credit Information Bureau India Limited. Then we have CRIF. Then we have a CRIF high mark. Then we have Experian. Then we have Equifax. So right now we have these 4 credit information companies. Any idea who is regulating these credit information companies? Because this was a question in previous year prelims about credit rating agencies. The credit information companies, please remember, they are not regulated by SEBI. They are regulated by RBI. Very important. Credit rating agencies are regulated by SEBI. We are talking not about credit rating agencies. What are we talking about? Credit information companies. Okay. So here, when you look at this credit information company, they collect the necessary information, and this information is given to the banks, based upon which banks can distinguish between good borrowers and bad borrowers. But the problem is, there are number of problems with respect to credit information companies. What are the problems? Let's understand. The first biggest problem is only credit related information is collected. When I say only credit related information is collected, it means only information related to previous loans taken by a person or a company is taken. Now, why it is a bad thing? Let's say I'm a person and I have not taken loans so far. Will I have any credit history? I'll not have any credit history. So how can you know whether I'm credit worthy or not? It's very difficult to know my credit worthiness because I've not taken loans so far. So one is this particular problem. The second problem is there is lack of coordination between these 4 credit information companies. So when we do not have effective coordination between those 4 credit information companies, automatically it leads to lack of information overlapping, or will not be able to capture the entire information. Am I audible clearly? Was there any disturbance in between? Okay, fine. So lack of coordination is the second important problem. And third and most important is ancillary information or subsidiary information which can prove my credit worthiness. That information is not collected. Now just think and tell me what kind of subsidiary information or what kind of ancillary information about a company or a person can prove its credit worthiness apart from the loans which it has taken. My income levels, how much is my income? Or if I own a particular company, what is the balance sheet of the company? How much tax I am paying to the government, right? So there are certain ancillary information such as balance sheet of your company, how much tax I'm paying. This kind of information is presently not even collected. So this is the biggest problem as far as credit information in India is concerned. So first and foremost, we are collecting information only about previous loans. If someone has not taken loans so far, he don't have any credit history at all. Second, there's lack of coordination between multiple agencies. And third, ancillary or subsidiary information is not collected. This was a problem which was identified by RBI way back in the year 2018. So that time, RBI had appointed a committee. Please remember the name of the committee. It's quite important. Yashwant Geostali Committee. This particular committee identified all of these problems. And after identifying these problems, this committee then recommended the RBI to set up a new agency called as PCR. It stands for Public Credit Registry. PCR is Public Credit Registry. This was an agency which was proposed to be set up by this particular committee. What would this particular agency do? This agency will collect all the credit related information, plus it will also collect all the ancillary information about the borrowers, which can in turn help the banks to access the credit worthiness of a borrower. This was a recommendation given when? 2018. And abhi 5 saal ke baad, 2023, we have now decided to set up a new agency, which the government has decided to call it as National Financial Information Registry. Like I said, ancillary information is any kind of information which can help the banks to know the credit worthiness of the borrower. Ancillary information could be about the income level of a person. If there's a company, the balance sheet of the company, the tax payment by the person, all this is a kind of ancillary information. Okay, now can you quickly think about the benefits of this National Financial Information Registry? What do you think are the benefits? Quickly. Lower NPS, good Archie. Reduce NPS. Easy and fast process, good Shailaja. Faster loans, good Mahesh. No adverse selection, good. Good Tanishka. Good. Fine. So I hope you understood the new concept, all of you. Okay. Please have a look at the mind map. That is what I said. Do not write anything. Whatever I am explaining, everything is there in the form of mind map. So I have highlighted importance of credit information. What is the present status? What are the problems with respect to collection of credit information? So ancillary information such as tax paid, balance sheet of the company is not captured. Look at the committee, Geostali Committee, 2018, Budget 23-24 proposal, set up National Financial Information Registry to collect all financial as well as ancillary information. To be set up by whom? By the RBI. Benefits, you can see all of these are the benefits. Understood, all of you? Right? Chandrakant, I'll come to your doubt later. Okay. Okay. Practice MCQ number 13. सबसे पहले, the credit information companies are regulated by SEBI. They are not regulated by SEBI, they are regulated by RBI. The Credit Information Bureau India Limited is a public sector owned credit information company. It's not public sector owned company. It's a private sector owned company. So right answer is neither one nor two. So if you go back to previous year prelims question, there's a question related to credit rating agencies. The question has been formulated on similar lines. Look at this question. The NFIR would provide all the financial and ancillary information to the banks to access the credit worthiness of the borrowers. NFIR is set to replace and take over all the existing credit information companies. Did I say that? No, right? If it was that important, I would have said that. So this is the kind of confusion which UPSC creates in your mind by giving up with a statement which is a very random statement. So this is incorrect. So right answer is 1 only. Okay. Next, coming to credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs. Let's understand what is this credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs. To make your understanding easier, what I've done is I've incorporated a flow chart and I've numbered the sequence of events which take place. Let's look at that point. Sabse pehle, you have a bank. This bank will extend collateral free loan to MSME. When it extends a loan to MSME without any kind of collateral, that time the bank will pay a kind of guarantee fee to a entity which has been set up by SIDBI and Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise. So both these entities have come together and set up Credit Guarantee Fund Trust for micro and small enterprises. So bank will pay the guarantee fee to this particular entity. In return, this entity will guarantee repayment of loans which the MSME has taken. So here, if the MSME defaults on repayment of loan, this entity on behalf of MSME will pay loan to the particular bank. So it's simply, it's like a kind of insurance which the banks take whenever they give any kind of collateral free loans to the MSMEs. It's a kind of risk on, it's a kind of insurance where in case of insurance, what do we pay? We pay a insurance premium. Here, what are they paying? They're paying only guarantee fee. That's the only thing. I hope you understood. Now, why do you think we have come up with such a scheme? Now, we know that MSMEs, their contribution to the Indian economy is very immense. They contribute almost like 28% to India's GDP. They contribute 45% to the manufacturing output, and they contribute 40% to India's exports. But the biggest problem which MSME sector face is lack of access to credit. So in order to encourage banks to give more amount of collateral free loans to MSMEs, we have come up with a particular scheme. Now there are some salient features of this scheme. Let's look at this. Which all categories of banks can take a guarantee from this particular entity? It covers all the banks, including the scheduled commercial banks as well as regional rural banks. That's the first thing. Second, what's the loan limit for providing guarantee? Loan guarantee is given only for loans of up to how much? Rupees 2 crores. इसका मतलब क्या है? If this MSME takes loan of more than 2 crores, will this entity give any guarantee? This entity will not give guarantee. Guarantee is given only when this MSME is taking loans of lesser than or equal to 2 crores. And look at the last part, extent of guarantee. So if this MSME defaults on repayment of loans, what extent of loan amount will this entity pay to the bank? Kitna guarantee dega? This guarantee ranges from 50% to 85% of the loan amount. Minimum guarantee कितना हो सकता है? 50%. Maximum guarantee कितना हो सकता है? 85%. So let's say the guarantee is, for example, 50%. This MSME has taken loans worth 2 crores. In future, this MSME fails to repay the loans. Then this entity will pay how much in this case? 1 crore. Ankit, here guarantee is just like a insurance. In case of insurance, you pay insurance premium, right? In this case, this bank is simply paying a guarantee fee. Again, loan to MSME, you guarantee that if this MSME defaults on loan repayment, you should make me the payment on behalf of the MSME. That's a guarantee fee. Clear, Ankit? Okay. So what's a new budget announcement? In the new budget announcement, we have decided to infuse almost like 9,000 crores into this particular fund. It's a new budget announcement. So since this particular scheme is in news, please remember about the salient features of this particular scheme. Okay. Now coming to a very interesting concept of data embassies. Let's understand what are data embassies. Now, before discussing the concept of data embassy, which was announced in this year's budget, let me just take an example from a day-to-day life. Now, let's say you have done a lot of hard work and you have prepared elaborate notes. And these elaborate notes related to your exam preparation, you have stored on your laptop. And you have thought that you'll use this particular notes later for the revision. Now, can I say some of you who are very careful, who are very cautious, you have this genuine fear. What if my laptop crashes later? अगर मेरा लैपटॉप क्रैश हो गया तो जो कुछ भी मेरे नोट्स हैं वो सब चले जाएंगे. So what will you do? You will back up those notes, right? You will take a backup of those notes onto a hard drive. You will transfer the notes to a hard drive so that in future, even if the laptop crashes, you will still have access to those precious notes which you have built over a period of time. Now extend the same logic to a particular country. Can I say a particular country has huge amount of sensitive and critical data? If it stores all the sensitive and critical data within its own physical boundaries, and in an event such as say cyber attack or a natural disaster, it's quite possible that the entire data of a particular country can get wiped out. So what can such a country do? Such a particular country can simply set up servers. Such a country can simply set up servers outside its physical boundaries in other countries. So these data centers, these servers, which one country sets up in other countries, this itself we call it as data embassies. आप सभी ने सुना होगा foreign embassy. Like in India, we have foreign embassies of US, UK, and all other countries have their foreign embassies in India. Similar to foreign embassies, we are going to have data embassies in India. Foreign embassies, are they regulated by our own laws or are they regulated by international laws? Foreign embassies. Physically, when you look at foreign embassies, they are located in India, but our laws are not applicable to these foreign embassies. They are applicable by international laws. For example, you must have heard about Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. Suna hai aapne? So this international convention will determine how a foreign embassy would work. On similar lines, when one country is setting up a data embassy in India, this embassy, data embassy, even though it is located in India, it is not be governed by our own laws. It will be governed through the international laws. You got this point, all of you? Now, let's look at one of the best example of a data embassy which a country has set up. Some of you must have heard about a country called as Estonia. Suna hai aapne? Estonia. Now, Estonia is probably one of the country which is at the forefront of digital revolution. What it has done is it has adopted 100% paperless governance. By adopting 100% paperless governance, all the services which the Estonian government is providing, it has moved to a digital platform. And the problem is, Estonia has been affected by cyber attacks in the recent past. So its servers, its data center is highly vulnerable to the attacks. So what Estonia government has done is, it has entered into an agreement with Luxembourg government. By entering into an agreement with the Luxembourg government, Estonia has set up data centers or servers where? In Luxembourg. Now, who will protect these data centers and servers? It will be protected by Luxembourg. But whose laws will be applicable to these data centers? Not that of Luxembourg. The laws of Estonia will be applicable to data centers. So it's a kind of an agreement which these two countries have come into being, and they have set up a world's first ever data embassy. So first ever data embassy has been set up by whom? Estonia. Where has it been set up? In Luxembourg. Now, as far as India is concerned, we know we are already a IT powerhouse of the global level. On similar lines, it is being said that India has a potential to emerge as the world's hard drive. Can you look at the significance here? We are talking India emerging as world's hard drive. इसका मतलब क्या है? We can encourage other countries to come and set up their data embassies in India. We can become the next hard drive of the world. So in order to ensure that India becomes one of the world's hard drive, recently the finance minister has decided to enable setting up of data embassies by other countries in India. But right now, these data embassies are going to be set up not in the domestic territory of India, rather they are going to be set up in GIFT IFSC. I hope you must be knowing. They set up an International Financial Service Center, GIFT City in Ahmedabad. So as of now, data embassies will be set up only at GIFT, not in the rest of Indian territory. So this is the most important development. What do you think are the benefits for India? What will we get in return? Yes. Take your time. What are the benefits? Soft power, foreign exchange, foreign earnings, investment, commission for maintaining the data, increased technological. So can I say, first and foremost, when we have come up with a framework to set up a data embassy, can I say it will encourage a large number of foreign companies to set up their data centers in India? So you have companies such as Google, you have companies such as Amazon, which are maintaining huge data servers. So they can move their data servers to the GIFT City IFSC for more amount of investment in data storage. As we are able to promote more amount of investment later over a period of time, these countries may need certain subsidiary services from Indian software companies also, subsidiary services such as analysis of the data, right? So it can help us promote the IT sector also. We can create jobs also. So it has a potential to have multifaceted benefits in terms of higher investment, creation of jobs, giving a fillip to the IT sector, and so on. So you can just have a look at this particular mind map on data embassies. So you can see meaning of data embassy: data centers or servers set up by a country outside its physical borders. Just like foreign embassies, data embassies are governed by whom? By the foreign laws. Example: world's first data embassy will be established by has been established by Estonia and Luxembourg. Rationale: it will help the countries to provide for digital continuity in event of cyber attacks, disasters. Enable countries to save their critical data across the world. Budget proposal will facilitate setting up of data embassies in GIFT City IFSC. Clear with this, all of you? Okay. Practice MCQ number 15. Answer is A. B is incorrect because it does not give guarantee on 100% of the loan amount. Practice MCQ number 16. Look at the first option. It refers to data centers set up by foreign countries in their embassies located in India. Are they going to set up data centers in their embassies? They're not going to set up the data embassies in India, right? Look at the option D. It refers to data centers set up by foreign countries in the GIFT IFSC in India, which is actually correct. It cannot be C. We're not going to set up data centers in other countries. Rather, we are asking other countries to set up data centers in India. Okay. Now coming to next part, that is Urban Infrastructure Development Fund. Let's understand about Urban Infrastructure Development Fund. So here we know that there is a priority sector lending target for different banks, which I said for most of the banks is like 40%. For RRBs, it is 75%. For small finance banks, it is 75%. Right now, what happens is whenever there is a shortfall in priority sector lending target, for example, let's say you have ICICI Bank, it has given total 100 rupees in the form of loans, out of which it is required to give 40 rupees loans to the priority sector. Let's say here this ICICI Bank, it has not given 40 rupees, it has given just 25 rupees as priority sector loans. The shortfall in this case is how much? Rupees 15, right? Rupees 15 is the shortfall. And what happens is when a bank is unable to fulfill its lending target with respect to priority sector, the shortfall amount gets distributed across three different funds. One is RIDF, Rural Infrastructure Development Fund, which is managed by NABARD. As the name suggests, this particular fund will be used for development of infrastructure in rural India. A certain part of the fund will go towards Small Enterprises Development Fund, which is managed by SIDBI. As the name suggests, it will be used for development of small scale enterprises. Certain amount of fund goes towards Affordable Housing Fund. As the name suggests, this particular fund will be used by NHB for building houses. So here the RBI will decide what proportion of this shortfall will be distributed across three different funds. Taking this forward, in this year's budget, the finance minister has created an additional fund, which is called as what? Urban Infrastructure Development Fund. Look at this fund. इसका क्या नाम है? Rural Infrastructure Development Fund. इसका क्या नाम है? Urban Infrastructure Development Fund. That one we are going to use it for development of rural areas. This one we are going to develop for urban areas. And look who is going to manage this. NHB. Got this point? So itna yaad rakh lo, that should be more than sufficient as far as Urban Infrastructure Development Fund is concerned. Are we clear now? Okay. Now coming to the next topic. The next topic is about the municipal bonds. So with respect to municipal bonds here, this year's budget, the finance minister has announced that the government will facilitate the urban local bodies to issue the municipal bonds in India. So as far as your prelims and mains examination is concerned, you must know as to what are these municipal bonds and how these municipal bonds are going to work. So let's start with the discussion of municipal bonds. Okay. So you can see here, with respect to municipal bonds, as the name suggests, the municipal bonds are the bonds which are going to be issued by municipal corporations or urban local bodies in India in order to finance their expenditure. So just like how you have corporate bonds issued by corporate entities, you'll have municipal bonds issued by the urban local bodies. The municipal bonds are of two types: general obligation bonds and revenue bonds. What's the difference here? In case of general obligation bonds, whatever money the urban local body is raising through general obligation bond, that money it can utilize for whatever purpose it wants to. There's no restriction that the money has to be utilized for this purpose, and so on. But if an urban local body is raising money through revenue bonds, here compulsorily, mandatorily, the money raised through revenue bonds has to be used only for a specific project. So clearly, the urban local body will say before issuing a revenue bond that we are going to raise this much amount of money, and this money we are going to use it for this particular project. For example, let's say you have an urban local body which wants to fund a metro project. To fund a metro project, what will it do is it will go for issuance of a revenue bond. Clear with this? Now, if you look at the present status, the first ever municipal bond was issued by Bangalore Municipal Corporation way back in the year 1997. Subsequently, a large number of urban local bodies have issued the municipal bonds in India, some of which include Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, Surat Municipal Corporation, and recently, that is in the year 2020, Lucknow became the first city from UP to issue the municipal bond. Already, SEBI has come up with the detailed guidelines as to what the urban local bodies should follow when it comes to issuance of the municipal bonds. Now, what are the benefits of issuing municipal bonds? Let's understand. See, earlier, the government of India had appointed a committee under the leadership of Ishwar Judge Ahluwalia Committee. This particular committee identified that urban local bodies need almost like 40 lakh crores to spend for upgrading the urban infrastructure. For upgrading urban infrastructure such as roads, flyovers, housing, sanitation, etc., we need 40 lakh crore. So some part of this particular funding, the urban local bodies can raise through the issuance of municipal bonds. Secondly, when you look at urban local bodies, right? Urban local bodies, they have two sources of revenue. One is they can generate their own revenue, and second, they get grants from both center as well as states. When it comes to their own revenue, right? They can generate revenue by collecting property tax, and they can impose various fees as well as penalties as well. But the biggest problem right now is it has been identified by second ARC report, that is Administrative Reforms Commission, that only 10% of money which the urban local bodies get, they are getting it from their own sources. 90% of money which they get is in form of grants. From where? From center and state government. So can I say that urban local bodies are even today not financially sustainable? They're still dependent upon the grants of the center and states. So in future, if we allow the urban local bodies to issue the municipal bonds, automatically their own internal revenue generation will increase. That's the second benefit. Third benefit is, if an urban local body wants to issue the municipal bond, this urban local body should be transparent. It should be accountable. When I say transparent means, before issuing the municipal bond, the urban local body should clearly communicate to the investors as to what is its financial position, how much is its revenue, how much is its profit, how much is its expenditure. Only when it is providing such kind of financial information to the investors will come forward to purchase the municipal bonds. Otherwise, they'll not come forward. So can I say this need for the urban local bodies to issue municipal bonds will automatically improve their transparency and accountability? And last and most importantly, it will reduce the dependence of urban local bodies on banks for the loans. And by doing that, we'll be able to reduce the asset liability mismatch of the banks. But what are the problems and challenges with respect to municipal bonds? Let's understand. First problem is, right now, only 1% of the funds are raised through municipal bonds, just 1%. So the overall penetration of municipal bond market in India is very, very low. Why is that? Why are urban local bodies reluctant or not coming forward to issue municipal bonds? It's like a vicious cycle, basically. Their financial position is poor. Since their financial position is poor, they know for sure that even if they issue municipal bonds, no one will come forward. And if they're not issuing municipal bond, the financial position will further deteriorate. So it's like a vicious cycle. First problem. Second, when urban local bodies are getting easier grants from states as well as centers, they are grants, right? They're not loans, which means urban local bodies are not required to pay back this money. So when they're getting this easy money, why go for a route which is more difficult? Because this is a loan which they are taking for municipal bonds. They have to repay the loans. So they are always going out for the easier route. Easier route is depend upon the grants given by the center as well as states. And look at the last part, poor record keeping by urban local bodies. As I said, one of the most important criteria for issuance of municipal bonds is the urban local bodies should maintain transparency and accountability. So when they don't provide financial information, when they don't have proper records, they will not be in a position to issue the municipal bonds. So in order to encourage the development of municipal bond market in India, budget has announced that cities will be incentivized to improve the credit worthiness so as to improve the so as to issue the municipal bonds in India. Now, why is it important? You must be knowing in GS paper 2, you have a topic of urban local bodies, right? So in this particular topic of urban local bodies, which is part of your GS paper 2, you could incorporate all of these points about the urban local bodies. Look at the name of the committee which I said. Kya naam hai iska? Ishwar Judge Aluwalia. How much funding we need? 40 lakh crores. So Naman is asking as to how will the cities be incentivized to improve their credit worthiness. The finance minister has not clearly hinted as to how we will incentivize them to improve their credit worthiness. But what could be done is, when we are giving them grants to urban local bodies, grants given by center and states, these grants can be tied grants. Like we can give them grants only based upon a condition that they have got good record keeping, that they improve their transparency and accountability. So when we impose such kind of conditions on urban local bodies, then automatically their credit worthiness will improve. Clear, Naman? How will it reduce asset liability mismatch? See, what will banks do? Banks mobilize short-term deposits and they give long-term loans. Deposits for the banks are liabilities, loans are assets. So it creates a asset liability mismatch. I hope we are clear, all of you, right? Okay, now coming to last component under the financial sector, it is Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav Mahila Samman Bachat Patra. So what is this Mahila Samman Bachat Patra? It's a new small savings schemes which the finance minister has announced in this year's budget. Under this small savings schemes, we can make a deposit in the name of a woman or a girl child of up to rupees 2 lakh. So you can make a deposit of up to rupees 2 lakh into this particular account, and on this particular deposit you will get a interest of 7.5% rate of interest, and this deposit will be applicable for a period of 2 years. So these are the features of the new scheme called as Mahila Samman Bachat Patra. So account would have to be compulsorily opened in the name of whom? Women or a girl child. So you must be knowing about small saving schemes, like we have post office deposits, national savings certificate, Kisan Vikas Patra, and so on. So the list of all the small saving schemes, a new small saving schemes has been added, which is Mahila Samman Bachat Patra. Yeah, 2 years. Okay, let's look at the small saving schemes. So you can see here, households, they put their money in different small saving schemes. Like right now we have 12 small saving schemes, but if you add the new small saving scheme, how much it will be? 13 small saving schemes. So you can see post office deposits, national savings certificate, Kisan Vikas Patra, all of these are your small saving schemes. Now what happens is, all that money which the people deposit into small saving schemes, it goes into a separate fund called as National Small Savings Fund, NSSF. This fund is right now maintained under Public Account of India. Please remember, it's not part of Consolidated Fund of India. It's part of Public Account of India. A certain amount of money from this National Small Savings Fund is in turn invested in government securities, which means, can I say, the government is borrowing indirectly from where? Households. So remember the question asked in Prelims 2022. There was a question in Prelims 2022 that a part of government's borrowing is financed through household savings, right? This is what was the question statement asked. So you can see a certain amount of money is invested in government securities, and it is called as what? Securities against the National Small Savings Fund. This Securities Against National Small Savings Fund is right now second largest source for government borrowings from market. So can you tell me what's the government's largest source of borrowings from the market? What is that instrument which the government issues to borrow from the market? क्या बोलते हैं इसको? Quickly. Yes, dated security. Once again, asked in prelims 2022. Two statements in prelims 2022 directly asked from this slide. Okay. So now, how is the interest rate on I'm sorry. How is the interest rate on small savings schemes fixed? It is fixed by the government on a quarterly basis. Quarterly basis means every 3 months the interest rate is fixed. And the interest rate is in turn based upon the yield rates of the government securities of similar maturity period. What does it mean? For example, let's say you have a national savings certificate whose maturity period is, say, equal to 5 years. So its rate of interest will be similar to the yield rate on 5-year government security. If this national savings certificate maturity period is equal to 10 years, the rate of interest will be equal to what? Yield rate on 10-year government security. Understood this point? But we know that yield rate on a government security changes every day. Does it mean that interest is also changing every day? Interest does not change every day. Interest changes at a frequency of every quarter. I hope you understood this part. Okay. So please have a look at this particular practice question. We know the answer is neither one nor two. It does not get deposited into Consolidated Fund of India. It gets deposited into public account of India. The interest rates is completely market determined. It is not market determined. It is fixed by the government. So both the statements are incorrect. Okay. Now coming to the next theme of infrastructure development. In case of infrastructure development, these are the major themes. That is 50-year interest-free loan, review of harmonized list of infrastructure, increase in capital outlay for railways, and so on. Can we have a class for additional half an hour? Is it okay with all of you? Yes or no? Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks for your patience. I know it's a pretty long class. Can't help. Okay. Fine. Now, with respect to infrastructure development, let's look at these initiatives one by one. And like I said, in case of infrastructure sector, we do not have any major initiatives, because whatever major initiatives had to be taken, all these major initiatives have been taken in last year's budget. Like in last year's budget, we discussed important initiatives such as Gati Shakti Master Plan. We discussed 50-year interest-free loan. We discussed increase in capital outlay. So all the important initiatives have been taken in the last year's budget. So what we will do in this year is we will quickly recap the important initiatives of this year's budget, starting with 50-year interest-free loan. Okay. I hope in the last year's budget, some of you might have attended. I've discussed everything related to 50-year interest-free loan. To tell you in detail, as part of this 50-year interest-free loan, the central government is going to give loans to the state government for a period of 50 years. And the central government is not going to charge any interest. So this is the concept of 50-year interest-free loan. So it was initially unveiled as part of Atmanirbhar Bharat package. Last year, we had fixed a corpus at 1 lakh crore. And now in this year's budget, we have decided to continue with this particular scheme with an enhanced corpus of 1.3 lakh crore. We have further increased the corpus. But one thing which the finance minister has announced in this year's budget is whatever loans the center is giving to states under this particular scheme, entire loan amount has to be used in this year itself. This is an important development which has taken place. That's the first thing. Second, last year, when we gave loans to the states under this particular scheme, we did not impose any conditions of the states for what purpose the money has to be utilized for, right? But this year, the finance minister has said that the loans availed by the states under this particular scheme, a certain part of these loans has to be used for a specific purpose. What specific purpose? For example, in this year's budget, the finance minister has said that certain part of loans would have to be used by the states for creation, for setting up Unity Mall. What's a Unity Mall? Unity Mall is a concept which was, highlighted in this year's budget. Unity Mall means it's a kind of a shopping mall. It's a kind of mall which would be constructed by the state government. This Unity Mall will showcase the one district, one products of all the districts of a particular state. Apart from that, this particular mall will also showcase GI tags of a particular state, geographical indicator products. Apart from that, the finance minister has also announced that some part of this loan amount should be compulsorily used for setting up of digital libraries. Some funds should be compulsory used for constructing houses for police personnel and so on. Now, as far as your examination is concerned, you don't have to get into the details as to for what purpose the money can be utilized for. You just have to know that certain part of this loan amount has to be specifically used for certain specific purpose. Got it? Look at this practice question MCQ 2022. Answer is A. Apart from that, in last year's budget, I've discussed about borrowing powers of central states, that is Article 292, Article 293, whether states can borrow from outside India or not. All of this I have already discussed in last year's budget. So please have a look at last year's budget. You'll have a complete idea about this. Okay. Next is harmonized list of infrastructure. When I say harmonized list of infrastructure, once again, this was discussed in the last year's budget. So I had clearly told you that Ministry of Finance has come out with a list of harmonized list of infrastructure. All those subsectors which are included in this particular list, these subsectors are categorized as infrastructure sector. And if a particular subsector is included in this harmonized list, such a subsector will get certain additional incentives and benefits. So last year, the budget 22-23 had announced that data storage and energy storage will be added to the list of harmonized list of infrastructure. And you can see the harmonized list of infrastructure. We include transport and logistics, energy, water and sanitation, communication, social and commercial, and so on. Now here, once a particular sector is included in the harmonized list of infrastructure, they get a number of benefits and concessions. What are the benefits and concessions? Let's have a look. Long-term credit at affordable rate of interest from banks and financial institutions. Second, they will be able to have easier access to long-term funds from insurance companies, pension fund companies. Third, they'll be able to have easier access to external commercial borrowings. And fourth, they will be able to have access to investment from sovereign wealth funds. So as far as this year's budget is concerned, in this year's budget, the finance minister has simply announced that this particular list will be reviewed, and if needed, more sectors will be included in this particular list. Which sectors are going to be included in this particular list? Finance minister has not highlighted that part. So you can see the budget announcement, review the harmonized list of infrastructure. That's the only thing what we have done this year. I hope this part is clear. Okay. Now coming to the railway budget. Now all of you must be knowing that the railways enjoy monopoly with respect to running of passenger trains as well as freight trains. When railways is enjoying monopoly in running passenger trains and freight trains, one would assume that railways would be earning huge amount of profits. But can you guess how much profits we are earning on an annual basis? कितना हो सकता है हमारा profit? Anyone? No, we are not a loss incurring entity for sure. We are earning profit. Surprisingly, the profit is just 2,000 crores. That's it. You can see the profits कितना है हमारा? Just 2,000 crores. The reason is we are spending huge amount of money. Particularly if you look at this concept of operating ratio, this operating ratio in 23-24, it is expected to be like 98.45%. What does it mean? This basically means that to earn 100 rupees, we are spending 98.45 rupees. So when we are spending so much huge amount of money, obviously our net profit amount will also be very less. And it is being said that since Indian Railways is earning less amount of profits, it has less amount of money to upgrade the railway infrastructure. So what we have done in this year's budget is we have significantly increased the capital outlay for the railway budget to almost like 2.4 lakh crores. So we have increased the allocation to Ministry of Railways to 2.5 lakh crore, which is considered to be the highest in last 4 to 5 years. So the idea is to improve the overall financial position of railways in India. I hope this part is clear. Okay. So you can just use this as a fodder point. If at all you get a question in UPSC mains in GS paper 3 about the railways, you can just mention that this year the government has increased the allocation to its highest level of 2.4 lakh crore. That's it. Okay. Now coming to the social sector initiatives. In case of social sector initiatives, we'll start with the first initiative of SHGs, self-help groups. As of now, we do not have any details as to where this capital will be invested. Are we clear? Okay. Let's start with the SHGs. Organizing SHGs into large producer organizations. Okay. सबसे पहले, do you know that SHGs is part of your syllabus? Self-help groups is part of the syllabus. It's part of your GS paper 2, polity and governance, right? So you should take this as an opportunity to understand in detail about SHGs, self-help groups. I hope all of you must be knowing certain basic details about SHGs, right? What are its benefits? What are the challenges? So what I'm going to do in next 5 to 10 minutes is I'm going to discuss everything related to the SHGs from the perspective of your GS paper 2. So let's start with the SHGs. Sabse pehle, you must be knowing that in case of SHG, you have like 15 to 20 women who come together and they form a self-help group. As the name suggests, self-help. The idea of setting up of a self-help group is each and every women member will make certain amount of contribution to the SHG. And once they make contribution to the SHG, they can lend among themselves, they can borrow among themselves. And if needed, the SHG can also take up certain productive activities. Productive activities such as, say, making of papads, making of pickles, or they can become entrepreneurs of a small size industry and so on. Now, in order to support women members to form self-help groups, the government of India has a scheme. Its name is Deen Dayal Yojana, National Rural Livelihood Mission. It's a scheme which the government is presently implementing in order to support the formation of SHGs. So what we are doing under this particular scheme is we are focusing on universalization of SHGs. When I say universalization of SHGs means here we are trying to ensure that at least one women member belonging to a BPL family is part of the SHGs. At least one women member belonging to SHGs. Universalization. Once we are ensuring that women becomes part of SHG, the government is providing support to such SHGs. What kind of support do you think the government is providing to SHGs? Anyone? क्या support है? Credit, financial, funds. Okay. Government provides for a support in the form of what is called as a revolving fund. What is this revolving fund? Revolving fund means based upon the amount which a SHG has been able to mobilize. Let's say if there are 15 to 20 women members in SHG, they are mobilized, say 1 lakh. So based upon how much money the SHGs are able to mobilize on their own, the government would also make amount of its own contribution to SHG. We call this as revolving fund. So that is the first thing. Second, government has created a linkage between SHG and bank. So we have a program called as SHG Bank Linkage Program. This particular program is right now implemented by NABARD. So NABARD ensures that each and every SHG which is formed in India has access to banks. So bank will be able to give sufficient amount of credit to the SHG. So this is the second component. The third component is government will also provide for the necessary skill set to the SHGs so that if SHGs want to take up any entrepreneurial activities, if they want to take up any productive activities, they can take up. So government will provide the necessary skill set. And apart from that, government will also provide for interest subvention. I hope you are able to recall the concept of interest subvention. It's a subsidy on the interest, right? So all of these things, the government is providing support to SHGs under Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana, National Rural Livelihood Mission. So let's look at the mind map. You can see all these features I have explained. Look at the present status of SHGs in India. How many SHGs we have? 1.2 crore SHGs, and 88% of members of SHG are women. And what you must understand is SHGs, are they purely only for women? We can have SHGs for men also, right? But majority of SHGs are women-led SHGs. Some of the best examples of SHGs that we have across India is one is SEVA. You must have heard about a SHG called as Self-Employed Women's Association. This SEVA is very important because this was the one which started the SHG movement in India. So this SEVA SHG was headed by a person who is quite famous. Her name is Ila Bhatt. She started this SEVA, Self-Employed Women's Association. And then we have other famous SHGs such as Mairada in Karnataka, Kudumshri, I hope you must have heard of. It's from Kerala. Then Jivika in Bihar. Now, why is this thing important is when you're writing an answer in UPSC mains, you need to have certain specific case studies to substantiate the answer. So when you substantiate an answer with case studies, it's a kind of value addition. That is why I've incorporated this examples. And look at the benefits. Now, when you look at the benefits of SHGs, right, you can randomly write benefits. Mairada is from Karnataka. When you look at the benefits, you can randomly write benefits. But it is always good to quote from an authentic source. And the authentic source here is a study which was conducted by Institute of Rural Management. This institute has carried out a detailed study about impact of SHG movement in India. So you can quote in the answer from this particular study. For example, you can see the multifaceted impact. economic impact, social impact, and political impact. I hope they are self-explanatory. Just have a look at the economic impact. Increase in female labor force participation rate. What's the female labor force participation rate in India right now? Any idea? Anyone? It was until last year, it was around 23-24%. But this year, as per the economic survey, it has increased to 27%. But we know there is a wide disparity between the female labor force participation rate and male labor force participation rate. On one hand, the male labor force participation rate is much higher at 75%. The female labor force participation rate is just 27%. So by increasing the penetration of SHGs, we can reduce the disparity between males and females with respect to labor force participation rate. It can help us improve the financial inclusion. And look at the third point, which is very important. According to the Institute of Rural Management, 2.5 years of membership in SHGs can help us increase the income level of women by almost like 20%. And lastly, it can help us promote social capital as well as economic democracy. So when I say economic democracy, it will help people or women to contribute to the process of development and also get benefited from the development which is taking place in the Indian economy. And look at the social impact. Social impact, you can see women empowerment has led to improvement in education, health, nutrition, decision making. I hope some of you must have heard about this Grameen experiment. Suna hai? From which country? Which is a country which is famous for Grameen experiment of SHGs, Bangladesh. The person who started this Grameen experiment, his name is Muhammad Yunus. Muhammad Yunus started this Grameen experiment in Bangladesh, which in turn has led to women empowerment, and empowerment of women in Bangladesh has led to other social benefits like improvement in education, health, and so on. Lastly, financial independence leads to higher political participation. In spite of these benefits, there are certain problems and challenges. You can see right now there is huge regional disparity with respect to penetration of SHGs. Right now it is being said that the SHG movement is more predominant in western and southern part of India. The SHG movement has so far not penetrated much the northern, eastern, and northeastern part of India. So that is one problem. Second is limited presence of SHGs in urban areas. We have not tapped the potential of SHGs in urban areas. So we can focus more upon development of SHGs in urban areas to realize its potential. Other problems is lack of credit support, limited hand-holding support, and so on. Now, recently, while addressing a conference on SHGs, self-help groups, Prime Minister Modi made a very, very significant statement. Look at the statement which he has made. SHGs can transform into nation help groups. What's the meaning of this nation help groups? क्या हो सकता है? Anyone? Growth. It's not about growth. Okay, here when I say that SHGs can transform into nation help groups, it means two things. One, when we have SHGs at the local level, at the village level, what we can do is these SHGs at the village level, let's say in village, we have like 5 to 6 SHGs. These 5 to 6 SHGs at the village level can come together to form a larger SHG at the district level. The district level SHGs can come together to form a state level SHG. State level SHGs can come together to form a national level SHG. So from bottom to top. That's the one thing. Second, look at this nation help groups, which means the development of SHGs, apart from helping the development of women themselves, don't you think it will help in nation building, help in development of nation as well? So there are two ways of interpreting this. One, whatever SHGs we have, we can aggregate them, form a district level SHG. District level SHG can become a state level SHG. state level SHG can become a national level SHG. So bottom up approach. So keeping in mind this particular statement made by Prime Minister Modi, this year's budget has announced that we will organize multiple SHGs at the village level into larger producer companies. If you've still not been able to understand, just visualize the structure of rural cooperatives. If you look at structure of rural cooperatives, at a village level, what we have is primary agriculture credit societies at the village level. All these primary agriculture credit societies at the village level, they come together to form district central cooperative banks. All the district central cooperative banks at the district level, they come together to form a apex level bank at the state level. Just like that, we want to create a kind of a pyramid of SHGs. Why it is important? Can I say the SHG at the higher level can provide credit support, financial support, hand-holding support to SHG at the bottom level? So one SHG at a higher level will be able to support the SHG at the lower level. So that is a kind of a bottom-up model which we are trying to replicate as far as SHG movement in India is concerned. It's a significant development, which is quite important as far as women empowerment is concerned. I hope you understood now the concept. So if you're writing an answer in UPSC mains, do not forget to incorporate a statement made by Prime Minister Modi. What's the statement? The statement is SHGs can turn into the nation help groups. Quite important. I hope this part is clear, all of you, right? So let's come to the other initiatives. Others are very small initiatives. I'll just take another 10-15 minutes. I hope it's okay. I've been extending by every 10-15 minutes. Sorry for that, but I have to complete it. Hope it's okay. Okay, fine. Next initiative is PM Vikas. PM Vikas is a scheme which the government has announced in order to support the artisans and craftsmen of India. See, India is a country which is always known for its arts and crafts. For example, some of the arts and crafts of India which are famous across the world are like your Worli paintings, like your Pashmina shawls, Chennapatna toys, right? But we have seen that over a period of time, the artisans and craftsmen, they're not getting the necessary support, particularly in terms of support from the banks, support in terms of marketing and so on. So in order to support artisans and craftsmen, we have launched a new initiative called as PM Vikas. So you can see the objective of this is to improve quality, scale and reach of Indian arts and craftsmen. So here we are going to provide for financial support and skill-based training. We'll help the artisans and craftsmen to build their own brand, and will also link the artisans and craftsmen with the local and global markets. So just remember this scheme, PM Vikas, that should be more than sufficient. Any idea who is going to implement this scheme? कौन implement करने वाला है? It is most likely to be implemented by Ministry of Minority Affairs. Minority Affairs Ministry. Please remember that. Look at this. PM, particularly vulnerable tribal group development mission. So here we are focusing on providing the necessary facilities such as education, housing, sanitation to the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. In your polity classes, you must have studied about Article 342 of the Indian Constitution. Article 342 of the Indian Constitution empowers the president to declare certain communities as tribal communities, which are called as ST, scheduled tribes. Within the scheduled tribes, there are certain primitive tribes, which we call them as particularly vulnerable tribal groups. So for the support of such particularly vulnerable tribal groups, we have launched a new mission. Next is Bharat Shri. Bharat Shri is a new scheme under which we are going to carry out digitization of 1 lakh ancient inscriptions. This particular mission is going to be implemented by the epigraphy branch of Archaeological Survey of India, which is located at Mysore. So this is the implementation agency for the Bharat Shri project. And next is we are going to set up a national digital library for children as well as adolescents. So the idea of having this national digital library is to ensure that children as well as adolescents are able to have access to books from different geographies and as well as in different languages. But it is being said that even if you set up a national digital library, people in rural India may not be having access to this national digital library because they may not have the necessary infrastructure such as internet connection to have access to the digital libraries. So in order to ensure that people have access to these digital libraries, the state governments have been asked to set up the physical infrastructure. That is, they have been asked to set up physical libraries at the panchayat level as well as ward level. And these physical libraries will in turn provide for necessary infrastructure. Necessary infrastructure means computers, internet connection, so that people are able to have access to the National Digital Library. Next is apprenticeship promotion scheme. So what is this apprenticeship promotion scheme? Sabse pehle, let's understand what do you mean by apprenticeship. When I say apprenticeship, it basically means that one particular person can work as an apprentice and in a particular company. While working as an apprentice, this person will be able to earn stipend also. Apart from earning stipend, this person will also be able to get both on-job training. On-job training could be theoretical training as well as practical training. That's the concept of apprenticeship. Now, why is it so important for India? Now, when you see the overall penetration of skills in India, it is being said that only 13% of our workforce, they are skilled. Out of that 13%, 11% of our workforce, they have got informal skills. And just 2% of our workforce, they have got the formal skills. So the overall skill penetration in India, in spite of Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, is quite lower. Whereas if you look at countries, especially the best example of a country with the high level of skill set is South Korea. In South Korea, almost 90% of workforce is skilled. So compare and contrast. So we know that India is facing demographic dividend. But what's the use of demographic dividend if the youths in India are not skilled enough? Apart from that, it is being said that only 46% of graduates who are coming out of colleges and universities, they are employable. Remaining 54% of graduates, they cannot be directly employed in industries. Why? Because the curriculum that is taught to students in universities and colleges is quite different from the job requirement. So these people would have to learn something more to get the job. So on one hand, we have less number of people who are skilled, while more number of people who are coming out of colleges, they are not employable. So because of these two reasons, what we need is we need to promote apprenticeship. Understood this point, all of you? So in India, we have an act called as Apprentice Act 1961 and Apprenticeship Rules 1992. As per this act and as per these rules, all the establishments who are employing more than 30 employees, compulsorily, they are required to hire apprentices in the range of 2.5 to 15% of their workforce. It is not it is not flexible. It is mandatory. Compulsorily, they have to hire apprentices. As far as the organizations, which are employing less than 30% are concerned, it's for them on an optional basis. These people are also required to pay certain minimum stipend. Understood? So hiring of apprentices in India, is it voluntary or is it compulsory? Please remember, it is compulsory for the establishments which are having more than 30 employees. Now, in order to encourage the industries to hire apprentices, the government of India has formulated a scheme called as National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme. Under this particular scheme, whatever stipend the industries are required to give to the apprentices, 25% of that stipend amount is paid by the government. So only remaining 70% is paid by the industries, 25% stipend will be paid by the government. But here the government says that it will pay its 25% of stipend amount only up to rupees 1,000 per month per apprentices. So what's the new budget announcement? Budget announcement is whatever stipend the government is going to pay to the apprentices, this stipend amount, the government will transfer it directly to the beneficiary account. So if I'm hired as an apprentice in a particular industry, the industry will pay directly 75% of stipend into my bank account. The remaining 25% of stipend amount, the government will transfer it to my bank account. That's a new concept of apprenticeship. I hope this part is clear. Last one is Sickle Cell Anemia Elimination Mission. I hope some of you must be knowing about sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia is a genetic disorder of the blood. In this genetic disorder of the blood, the hemoglobin, which is a critical part of the blood, this hemoglobin is in a form of C-shaped or sickle shape. Because it is in a kind of crescent or C-shape, the hemoglobin, whose main role is to carry oxygen to the body, its ability to carry oxygen to the body reduces. So in this year's budget, the finance minister has announced that we'll try to eliminate sickle cell anemia by 2047. Is there any cure for sickle cell anemia? Then how are you going to eliminate? What's the cure for sickle cell anemia? Bone marrow replacement, right? We can replace the bone marrow, or else the only thing what we can do is sickle cell anemia gets transferred from parents to children. So what we can do is, particularly what happens is, if both the father and mother, if both are having sickle cell anemia, there's a higher probability that they will be able to transfer the sickle cell anemia to the children. So what we have to do is, we have to just ensure that when people are getting married, both the persons, they should not be having sickle cell anemia. So kind of counseling can be done. Awareness has to be increased. So just to ensure that when people are having sickle cell anemia, they don't get married to each other. So that's a kind of awareness or universal screening and so on. I hope we are clear, all of you. Okay, now the last part. Look at this, practice MCQ number 24. Practice MCQ number 24. The government provides financial support to the establishments. Government provides financial support. Government is not providing any direct financial support. What the government is doing, it is providing for stipend payment to whom? To the entities. This scheme is implemented, yes, by Ministry of Skill Development. PM Vikas, support artisans and craftsmen in India. Good. Okay, now coming to last part. Last part is 1, 2, 3, 4 schemes are there. I just take up these things one by one. As far as in UPSC Prelims examination is concerned, you could just get a one-liner questions. with respect to these initiatives. Like you will get a question, what does PM Pranam deal with? Or what does Mishti scheme deal with? Or what does Amrit Dharhor scheme deals with? This thing, if you know, that should be more than sufficient. There are more two things. Like one is green credit program. Under this green credit program, the finance minister has announced that the government would provide sufficient incentives to companies, local bodies, as well as individual who would reduce their carbon footprint. So if people are bringing about changes in their lifestyle and reduce the carbon footprint, then such entities will be given incentives. This particular program is going to be introduced under Environmental Protection Act 1986. But so far, the finance minister has not highlighted as to how this particular scheme of green credit program is going to work. The scheme is yet to be notified. Since it is yet to be notified, we'll have to just keep waiting for the final details or final contours to be released. So you can keep watching for this particular green credit program. Next is lab grown diamond. What's a lab grown diamond? Now, we know that how naturally diamonds are formed, right? So when you look at the natural diamonds, it is being said to mine the natural diamonds, there's a lot of ecological destruction which takes place. Ecological destruction such as when I mine a natural diamond, I have to dig up the ground. By digging up the ground, I lost a lot of amount of carbon which is trapped. It gets released. It leads to emission of carbon. It also leads to ecological destruction. So in order to reduce the demand for the natural diamonds, we are trying to promote the lab grown diamond. When you look at the lab grown diamond, right, in terms of the appearance, in terms of chemical property, it is going to be same as your natural diamond. Only thing is that these diamonds are going to manufacture in lab. So India, over a period of time, it is slowly emerging as one of the hub of lab grown diamond. So about which slowly over a period of time, you'll get details in the newspaper. So as far as these two things are concerned, the minute details are not yet revealed by the government. So you can keep waiting for this. We'll just focus upon the other 5 initiatives. Let's start with the renewable energy. Okay. With respect to renewable energy, right now, if you look at the total installed capacity of renewable energy, it has increased to almost like 1.5 lakh megawatt. Any idea what its share in terms of total installed power capacity in India in terms of percentage? We have already crossed 40%. What was our NDC target? Our NDC target was 40%. We have already crossed 40%, right? And this year's economic survey has highlighted that in terms of total installed renewable energy capacity at a global level, India's ranking is 4th place. In terms of solar power, also it is 4th place. In terms of wind power, also it is 4th place. So India stands 4th in terms of total installed renewable energy capacity, in terms of solar power capacity, and in terms of wind power capacity. But if I could highlight as one of the biggest problem or concern with respect to harnessing renewable energy is integration with the grid is very difficult. When I say integration with the grid is difficult, it means whatever power that we are generating from renewable sources such as solar, wind, it is very difficult to integrate that solar, that electricity with the grid electricity. Why? When you look at solar power, does solar power generate electricity throughout the day? It does not generate electricity throughout the day. It generates electricity only when the sun rays are very strong. During night time, it cannot generate electricity. Similarly, wind power also cannot generate electricity 24/7. So what we need to do is, whenever surplus amount of electricity is generated by renewable energy sources, the surplus amount of electricity should be stored in batteries, energy storage systems, so that this electricity can be used during the peak season. or during time when we need the electricity the most. So one of the biggest problem that we have in India is we do not have adequate energy storage systems, batteries. That's the first problem. Second problem is, when you look at the areas which have huge potential to set up solar power projects or wind power projects, they are located far away from consumption centers. For example, wind power, they are mostly located around the coastal areas. Solar power, they are mostly located in deserts. Or if you look at Ladakh, Ladakh is one of the region in India where we have optimum potential to generate solar power. But the problem is they are generated they are located far away from consumption centers. So what we need is evacuation infrastructure. Evacuation infrastructure means when the power is produced at where it is generated, the power have to be evacuated and sent to the consumption centers. So in order to address these two problems, the finance minister this year's budget has said that the government would provide for viability gap funding for setting up of power storage systems. Viability gap funding means we'll provide for funding support. We'll provide funding to the private sector to set up the power storage systems. And look at this, evacuation and grid integration of energy from where? From Ladakh. It's a new development just taken place. I hope this part is clear, all of you. Next is PM Pranam scheme. You can see that this PM Pranam scheme has been introduced by the government in order to reduce the consumption of chemical fertilizers and promote the usage of more alternative fertilizers, which has less impact on the agricultural soil. So you can see that right now India is the second largest user of fertilizers in the world. More than 1/3 of fertilizers are imported from other countries, which is leading to higher import bill, higher subsidy bill of almost like 2.5 lakh crore. Overusage of fertilizers has affected soil fertility. Hence, we are going to incentivize states and union territories to promote alternative fertilizers and balanced use of chemical fertilizers under PM Pranam scheme. Next is Bharatiya Prakritik Kheti Bio Input Resource Centers. In the last year's budget, I discussed a concept of natural farming. I had clearly highlighted as to in what way natural farming is different from organic farming. And I had told you that with respect to natural farming, one of the biggest concern is we won't be able to get the necessary inputs. So in order to provide for necessary inputs for natural farming, we are going to set up bio input resource centers. It will provide all the necessary inputs that we need to practice the natural farming. Okay, so that's the next part. Next is Mishti. Mishti is for promoting the cultivation of mangroves along the coastline. So you can see the name is Mangrove Initiative for Shoreline Habitats and Tangible Incomes. And then last is Amrit Dharohar, which is for conservation and development of wetlands. You must be knowing that the number of Ramsar wetlands in India has increased. How many wetlands, Ramsar sites we have in India right now? 75. Earlier we used to have like 26, 27, which has increased to 75. So in order to protect and conserve the wetlands, a new scheme has been launched called as Amrit Dharohar. Now, as far as these initiatives are concerned, as I said, you just have to know one-liner. If you know one-liner, that's more than sufficient. So look at practice MCQ number 26. It's like a question asked in previous year prelims. Previous year prelims पहली बार question आया था. How many pairs are correctly matched? 2 pairs are correctly matched, right? Good. Look at this practice question. What do you think? Which is the largest producer of solar energy? Once again, you must have seen last year prelims, we had a question about solar energy. Okay. Sabse pehle, Tamil Nadu is not the largest producer of solar energy. Until 2 years back, Karnataka was the largest producer of solar energy. But last year it was reported that Karnataka has been overtaken by Rajasthan. So right now, Rajasthan is the largest producer of solar energy. Second is Gujarat is the largest producer of wind energy. It is incorrect because it is not Gujarat. Rather, it is Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is the largest producer of wind energy. So first two statements are incorrect. The third statement says the share of solar energy in the total installed power capacity is higher than that of wind energy. Solar energy share in the total installed capacity is like 50,000 megawatt. Wind energy is 40,000 megawatt. So the share of solar energy is higher than that of wind energy. So the right answer to this particular question is B. That is 3 only. I hope you're clear. Fine. So finally, we are done with the discussion of the union budget. So there are some important points about the reforms in the governance, such as the important bill and some minute details. Those minute details, I will cover it as part of the economic survey discussion. And like I said, there's one important part about public finance, that is the debt, the revenue account, capital account, the fiscal deficit, and all of these things. I will take it up as part of the economic survey discussion. So we are done with the budget discussion for this particular session. Next week, same time, we will start with the discussion of economic survey 1. So wherein I will be taking up discussion of at least like 4 to 5 chapters. And then next week, we'll have another session on the economic survey. So in 3 sessions, we'll be done with both economic survey as well as budget. And like I said, once you're done with this particular session, the PPT for this entire session will be uploaded on the YouTube. That's the first thing. Second, in the YouTube also, you'll get a link on the eLearn portal. You can click on the link and attempt the quiz from the budget session. The same thing will be repeated for the next 2 weeks also. And as far as mains-based questions for practice, which I've incorporated, try to write answers on your own. Remember, I incorporated 2 to 3 mains questions for practice. Like one question was related to oil seeds. There was other question related to horticulture. So try to write answers to these questions on your own. Are we clear? Okay. In case if you need anything more from my side, please let me know. So I'm just going to unmute you all. So in case if you have any doubts, anything, you can just ask me. So in case anyone wants to ask any kind of doubt, you can simply raise your hand and start asking. PPT will be uploaded on the YouTube. Don't worry, I assure you. Yeah, Tanishka.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Sir, I wanted to know the relevance of last year's budget for this year's prelims. Do we have to go through that again?
It is important. In fact, both last year's budget as well as economic survey is quite relevant. So that's why I said it won't take much time. So if you watch the video at 2x, you'll be able to complete in 4 hours. So please complete it. Okay. Yeah, Akib.
Good afternoon, sir. It was a nice session. Thank you, first of all. Sir, in case of urban local bodies in India, they only generate 10% of their budget and 90% are grants, right?
Yeah.
So I think Mumbai is the richest municipal corporation in India and one of the richest in Asia also.
Yeah.
It is true for Mumbai also, or it is reverse?
Whatever I said, it's an average. It's not it's not specific. So this was a point which was highlighted by second ARC report on its second ARC on its report on urban governance. So it's a general, it's an average. So only 10% of the funds the urban local bodies are able to generate on their own. Remaining 90% of funds, they are dependent upon the grants.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Karim is asking what does non-institutional credit means. Non-institutional credit means the loans which the farmers take from money lenders. That we call it as non-institutional credit. Abhishek is asking what happens to the defaulting MSME under the credit guarantees. So here, if a particular MSME defaults under the credit guarantee, obviously the loan will be turned as NPA and the bank will go after the MSME to recover the loan amount. So that is different process. Okay. Ambika Ranjan is asking about evacuation and grid integration. Ambika Ranjan has was saying that the amount of electricity generated by solar power and wind power, it is not constant. It keeps changing throughout the day. So it's very difficult to feed that electricity into the grid. So what we must do is we must first store the electricity generated by solar power and wind power into batteries, energy storage systems. And then we have to feed it into the grid. So that is the grid integration. Evacuation means once the electricity is generated, the electricity has to be transmitted through distribution lines. For example, let's say we are generating solar power in Ladakh. From the solar power which is generated in Ladakh, this solar power has to be supplied to other parts of India also. So how will you take out electricity from there? Through distribution lines. That we call it as evacuation.
Sir, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, correct me if I am wrong. Like if, for example, if my understanding is wrong, like that National Financial Credit Register, how it is different from account aggregators?
How is it different from?
Account aggregators.
In a way, it's much similar to the account aggregators. So we have discussed about account aggregators, like they'll also aggregate all the financial information. So National Information Registry is also going to be kind of account aggregator. But here you can consider this National Financial Information Registry as a kind of pan-India organization. So when you look at account aggregator, we can have multiple account aggregators which are set up by private entities. But here, National Financial Information Registry is a single agency at the national level.
Okay, sir. Yeah. Thank you so much, sir.
Sure. How will institutional credit promotion work if agri-finance startups are also promoted? I'm not getting your question, Archit Sharma. Yeah, next. Someone has raised a hand.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Yeah.
So under the scheme for financial assistance to the states, we said that we added a new clause that the entire loan amount must be used within the year.
Same year. Yeah.
So what do you mean when we say the entire loan amount? So we have created a purpose of.
Let's say you have a government of UP. The government of UP out of 1.3 lakh crore, which is a corpus for this year. Let's say we given 10,000 crores to the government of UP. So government of UP should use the entire loan amount of 10,000 crores in the same financial year.
Okay, so they're not allowed to like use it.
No,
piecemeal.
it'll not be allowed to carry it forward to the next year.
Okay. Yes, so thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yeah, Abhilash.
Sir, what is agriculture infrastructure fund? You explained in the starting how it is different from agriculture accelerator fund. I little bit diverted.
Come again.
What is agriculture infrastructure fund? How it is different from agriculture accelerator fund?
We discussed agriculture accelerator fund is a fund which we are set up to support the agri-tech startups. That you understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. With respect to agriculture infrastructure fund, this is a fund under which the government is giving loans to startups, to primary agriculture credit societies, to farmer producer organizations, so as to improve the post-harvest infrastructure. So when I say post-harvest infrastructure means loans will be given to set up collection centers at the farm level, primary processing centers, storage, cold chain infrastructure. This one you understood?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So only for this agricultural infrastructure fund is only for post-harvest equipment, right?
Yeah. And this was unveiled much before during the Atmanirbhar Bharat package.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Naman is asking as to who will set up the National Financial Information Registry. It will be set up by RBI, Naman. It will be public sector owned. Okay, Naman.
100% public sector owned or combination of?
As of now, the details are not out. So what is going to happen is we are going to soon come up with a law through this law, we are going to set up the National Financial Information Registry. So the details are awaited.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Sure. Aishwarya?
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, if the MSMEs are gonna clear their loans, so the banks, do they receive their guarantee fee back?
No. Just like how you pay health insurance, you're not entitled to get back your premium. In this case, also banks do not get the guarantee fee.
Okay. And so one more, like along with CIBIL, all other three institutions are also private, right?
Along with
CIBIL.
Yeah, all the credit information companies are private.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next. Yeah, Divek.
Sir, I want to know that the PM Vikas will be implemented by Ministry of Minority Affairs or Ministry of Skill Development.
What used to happen was a lot of schemes and programs such as Nai Roshni and other skill-based programs were implemented by Ministry of Minority Affairs. So it is most likely to be implemented by Ministry of Minority Affairs only. But just do check once again and think it is Minority Affairs only.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yeah. Next.
So, like I was saying, that if any startup is lending money to the farmers, so that will be part of non-agricultural, non-institutional credit, right?
No, here it will be still considered as institutional credit, because what happens is here when institutions are lending money to the farmers, we consider it as institutional lending. Non-institutional sources is mainly the money lenders.
So, sir, will these startups be regulated by RBI?
Yeah. We have digital lending, right? RBI had come up with the digital lending norms.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, sir, I wanted to know that in a recent report by World Bank, it was quoted that to develop the urban cities and cities of and metropolitans of India, we require around 70 lakh crore rupees. The municipal bodies require 70 lakh crore rupees. However, in the report that you also showed in the slide, it is given rupees 40 lakh crores. So, is the difference is the difference of any value or?
No. I think what did the World Bank report, which you have, which you are quoting, did it put any time frame with respect to for how long we need that much amount of money?
Yes, sir. It was around. I think it was around 30 years or something. I'm not sure, but it had a time frame. Yes.
Okay. As far as this Isho Judge Aluwale committee is concerned, it was appointed way back in 2013-14, and it gave a time frame from 2011 to 2031.
Okay.
So for that particular time frame, it said 40 lakh crore.
Okay.
So these things keep changing because how they estimate also keeps varying, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome. Next.
Sir, in case of revenue municipal bonds, is there any obligation on urban local bodies to repayment should be done from specific project?
Yeah. So here, in case of revenue bonds, as per the SEBI's guidelines, when the bond comes up for redemption, right? So for the redemption of bonds, compulsorily you have to you have to repay money from the particular project which you have created. So let's say I have raised a revenue bond to create a metro project. So to repay the bond, I'll have to repay from my revenues which I earn from metro project.
Oh, yes, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So there is no obligation.
There's no such obligation in case of general obligation bonds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, tell me.
So regarding data embassies, sir. So the question says data embassies in the budget announced data embassies to be established in Indian territory. That will be incorrect, sir, because GIFT City is considered out of.
I don't think they'll pinpointedly ask you that. I think the question, if at all is asked in UPSC, they'll be very careful to formulate a question where they are able to clearly distinguish between the GIFT City and the domestic territory of India.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
So this maintenance charges and all the operations will be taken care of India or by
India. So it's like when right now we do not have any international precedents with respect to how these data embassies are going to set up and manage. The only framework that we have right now is the data embassy which Estonia has set up in Luxembourg. So what has happened is these two countries have entered into a kind of MOU, a kind of bilateral agreement. As per this agreement, they have said that Luxembourg will be completely responsible for ensuring the sovereignty of the data, as in like the data is not under attack. Luxembourg is responsible for that. And the laws as to how this data will be used, it will be governed by Estonian laws. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Abhishek is asking, is MGNREGA important since it is witnessing budget cuts? MGNREGA is always an evergreen project of the government. It is quite important. You have to look at the important aspects of MGNREGA. Clear, Abhishek?
So, quick question.
Yeah.
Do we have any data embassies abroad, or are we planning to set up any?
No, as of now, we do not have. Data embassy concept is completely new, which has entered in this year budget.
Yes, so thank you.
Okay. Fine then. I hope all of your doubts are clear. Okay. There are some people who might have asked me doubts in the YouTube, but since your doubts were not visible to me, I was not able to answer your doubts. I'm so sorry. But once we are done with the session, I'll go through your doubts in the YouTube session. And if at all, if I feel that there are some doubts which are remain unaddressed, I'll surely reply back to you on the YouTube. Don't worry. Okay. Thank you so much. It was wonderful taking your class. So I'll meet you next week and continue with the first part of the economic survey. Thank you so much. And most importantly, thanks for your patience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.